it, and I'm thrilled with everything that they have done. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them to introduce you to the day and to our speakers. Thanks.
Hey guys, welcome to Concept 2018. Thank you, Rachel, for inviting us to curate today's event. My name is Tina. I teach level 3 graphic design here at CCA.
My name's Heather. I teach hand lettering here at CCA.
And if you're wondering why we look strikingly similar, it's because we're sisters. And so when Rachel asked us to curate today's event, we knew we kind of wanted to fuse Heather's passion for handmade work and craft and my passion for strikingly visual graphic design.
The theme of today's show is tactile, and we have a stunning lineup of speakers here with us today. We're very honored to have COLPA PRESS, Moos AC, Tommy Perez, and A.D. Goodrich.
Oh, yeah. So, we're excited about today's theme of tactile because in this digital age, the boundaries of what is graphic design are becoming increasingly blurred. Design that is graphic is used as the underlying medium for all kinds of types of work and to manifest all types of creative visions.
Yes, and in this culture, in this time, and in this city, we wanted to highlight artists and designers who were consciously making things by hand. And not only are they relevant, but they're breaking new ground with their craft, they're pushing boundaries, and they're challenging the concept of what is graphic design. And we are inviting you to expand what your idea of graphic design is as well.
So, first up, we have COLPA PRESS, who I've been a big fan of ever since walking past their pop-up bookshop in a tiny newsstand on Market Street. Together, Luca and David act as a publisher, designers, printers, and curators, often working with artists on truly unique projects. They publish art books and recently founded the San Francisco Art Book Fair, the annual mecca of tactility in San Francisco. So please give a warm welcome to COLPA PRESS.
Hi. Just give us a minute here to get set up. Or more like 30 seconds. And thanks again for organizing this and everyone for, especially students, for coming on a Saturday, because I know it's like the last thing I wanted to do when I was in school.
Still is.
This is our Luca. So I just wanted to introduce me and David really quickly. This is David Kasprzak. My name's Luca Antonucci. Together we are COLPA, but anyone who's worked with us knows that we call ourselves like COLPA Press or COLPA Books and Video, depending on what we're working on. And COLPA PRESS happens to be our publishing practice. So most of what we're going to talk about, sorry, I keep walking away from this thing. Most of what we're going to talk about today is going to be our publishing practice, which is always a collaboration between me and David, but often includes a visual artist or a group of visual artists. And so just a little bit of background on how COLPA started. I won't dwell on this too much because it's like telling that college story that nobody knows any of the people that were there. But there's like, Kulpa started in 2010, and it was founded by me and Carissa Potter. And we shared a printmaking residency at the Kala Art Institute. And we printed our own editions and also did work for artists as a service, which I don't think was allowed, but we had to pay the bills. So yeah, we did that together for about 3 years, and we opened a newsstand on Market Street that was called Edicola, which is newsstand in Italian. Colpa also means fault or guilt. And my parents are Italian, so thus the language. And towards the end of that year, I got a residency at Will Brown, which is David's other project, and that's when we met. I kind of took over the store and made it a little pop-up shop, and we started working together then. And this is kind of fitting. This is the first project that me and David worked on together. Is that right? And it kind of embodies our sort of vision for what we wanted Kulpa to be, even if that changed over time. So I'm going to pass on to him.
Thank you. So like Luca said, this is the first thing that the two of us collaborated on. And you'll see with this project, as with most of them that we're going to present, they always culminate in some sort of event or exhibition, because we feel that it's just as important to create a community and a context for the objects that you're putting out into the world as the objects themselves. And the publishing world is something that we've really been able to be a part of and grow. Co-founding the book fair here and being exhibitors in many other fairs around the country and internationally, you really start to develop this large group and family of people all working kind of on similar things, and it creates a sort of inherent value to what everyone is doing, because people are aware that it's happening. And in the interest of being as tactile as possible, the physical objects of everything that we're going to talk about today are up on this front of the stage, and please feel free to come pick them up, pass them around, and check them out. So the first project is called the Rizzo Book. And Luca and I had met through some friends, and he wound up doing a residency at a space that I used to run in the Mission called Will Brown. And during that time, I had been doing research of my own on sort of artist-made catalogs and exhibition catalogs. And I came across the Xerox Book, which is something I had been interested in for a long time, but actually came across a high-res scan of the entire book. And so I went running to Luca and said, we should print this. To obtain a copy of the book now is about $4,000 or $5,000. But here's a pretty high resolution image of everything. More than anything, I just wanted a copy for myself. Luckily, that's not what we did. And the conversation continued, and we thought about, well, what if we redo the Xerox Book today? What would that look like? And so just to give you a little bit of background, the Xerox Book was put out in 1968 by curator Seth Siegelob and funded by gallerist Jack Wendler, who was kind of notorious for making great publications for his artists. It took place in New York when Siegelob had been working with many of these artists in this list, all sort of conceptualists at the time, who were more interested in the idea than the physical object. So books often became a main platform for viewing their work because they didn't necessarily need an exhibition space. It wound up being pretty empty a lot of the time. And Siegelob, being kind of a visionary, had sort of corralled these 8 artists together, 7, and said, hey, let's do this book together on this new fangled crazy contraption called a Xerox machine, which had just come out that year. So it was an interesting tool for them to work with. And now today we think of it as sort of a dead technology or a throwaway thing. But at the time they were excited, and he invited each artist in to use the Xerox machine and gave them 25 pages to do a project on, whatever that looked like. And then the book was bound at the end, and they're like, hey, this turned out great, let's make lots of copies, and then realized at the time that the Xerox was very expensive. So despite its name, the actual full edition of the book wound up being printed in offset, like many other art books. But the original was created on a Xerox machine. So Luca and I thought, why don't we do this with a risograph machine? Does everybody know what a risograph is? Anybody unclear? For anybody that doesn't know, it's a Japanese duplicator. So functions similar to a Xerox, but it's actually using ink and a screen, like a silk screen print. It's a round drum that's inside that burns a stencil of your image and forces ink through the negative space in the stencil. So you get kind of a more rich sort of handmade quality to it than toner on a paper. And in recent years, they've become really popular, but for a while they were really inexpensive because it kind of became a dead technology for the rest of the world. And you could often find them at churches or at schools getting rid of them. And lots of designers and artists have sort of hacked them to print multiple color processes and do all kind of crazy things with them. So the first thing we did is we thought about this project and thought about what it would look like now without all old white guys from New York. So we picked 5 cities that we wanted to go to and work with 7 to 8 artists in each of those cities whose work we thought would translate well into this project and have some sort of confluence between all of their work. So the first place we went was Los Angeles. We set up shop at the Los Angeles Contemporary Archive, which is an incredible archive of artist publications in Chinatown in LA. It's fully open to the public. If you're ever down there, I recommend going to see it. And these are the artists that we invited. You may know some of these people. Some of these people may be newcomers. So the same format. We gave them each a day with the risograph, and we said, here, you have 25 pages to build a project. And we selected one color for each city that we were going into to kind of maintain this monochromatic look of the original Xerox book as well. So all of the artists worked in purple for Los Angeles, and some of them really took that color to heart. In the bottom left, you can see Mungo Thompson sort of broke up the Dr. Bronner's lilac soap label because it was exactly that color, and lavender soap, sorry, and printed that as his project. Next, we drove the Riso to Marfa, Texas, and worked with these 5 artists there. Slightly less people in Marfa, Texas than Los Angeles to choose from, but still kind of a really amazing, creative, important art hub. And here we worked out of a place called the Lumber Yard, which was at one point a lumber yard, and it had become sort of warehouse artist studios. And this one got a little wild. We worked with Boyd Elder, who's on here. You've probably never heard of, but you've definitely seen his stuff. He designed all of the Eagles album covers. And is sort of this like odd cowboy artist who is also the caretaker of Prada Marfa. If anyone has seen that installation that lives outside of Marfa, Texas, it's a Prada store that's not actually open or carrying any product. And he lives next door to it and paints over the graffiti that happens every day. Next, we came back home and worked out of the Caddist Foundation, which is in the Mission on 20th. We're really excited to work with this group of artists here, people that like Will Rogan and Vince Fecteau that we had wanted to collaborate with forever, and really kind of gracious as they accepted this weird request. Following that was Portland, Oregon, where we worked out of the Publication Studios. And if you're not familiar with them, it is a sort of publishing franchise almost. It was started as a really streamlined, formatted process to put out books, and anyone can open a publication studio wherever they want. They just write the originators and get the files, and everything is printed on demand. So that was kind of a great place to work out of. They had a risograph machine there, so we didn't have to lug ours there for the first time, which was great because it weighs about 500 pounds. And then the project culminated in New York at the New York Art Book Fair. We were printing and binding the last edition of this live during the fair, which was an absolute nightmare, and we've not done any live printing since. The fair is crowded, and there's about 30,000 people that attend it and are walking past you as you're trying to use this machine that's kind of like owning an antique car that wants to work some days and not at all other days. And we had some great projects in here. One from David Horvitz, who had been intentionally forgetting or losing his paintings at the airport so that the airport would pay to have them shipped to the gallery. And we printed a collection of correspondence letters that happened as a result of him losing paintings all over the world at airports. Here you can kind of see some pictures of the process. That's the Riso in the second image. On the left is LACA in Los Angeles. You're never supposed to print this much ink on a risograph, so that's why they're all drying individually, because if they stack up, it just soaks into the next page. So pretty much everyone used the Riso in a really wrong way, which we loved. Kind of produces more interesting results. And then strangely enough, last year, we were approached by Sprint, which is a book fair in Milan, wanting to put on an exhibition of the whole series, which to us is really funny because it's 5 books with blank covers, and they somehow managed to turn it into this whole physical exhibition, and where you could see treating it like these valuable objects with gloves on. When we had just kind of been tossing them around for years. So yeah, that's how Luca and I got started, and that was kind of a whirlwind, like 5-6 months of driving this Riso around the country and working with people.
All right, you guys staying with us here? Are we moving too fast, too slow? Okay, great. Okay, I still have to get used to this. I think of all the things we got out of the Riso book was that we really liked this process of like putting together a group of artists to not only as a way to create an exhibition, which in the first example was a book, or the book as exhibition, but also just as a way of testing out who we wanted to work with. And And a lot of the times those people, it would turn into more one-on-one like projects with them that were more kind of expansive and exhaustive than the Rezo book could be, just because of the focus. And so we kind of created Civic TV as the second part of that because, well, there were a bunch of different reasons, but Civic TV is an ongoing video series that is released on VHS. And I'm just going to approach that problem from the very beginning because I know it's a problem, and we've often been accused of being anachronistic. But there is a reason for it being on VHS, even though it seems like it might just be fetishism, but which it is. But there's more than that. So when looking at video art, and I think it really helped to talk to David about this when we first started working together, because we had realized that there was this problem with exhibiting video art, or with connecting with your audience as a video artist. And that problem was mostly due to the fact that the exhibition or gallery space was the only option, and there are more options, but was one of the few options presented for video artists to be able to show their work. And then another option that was very common was like Vimeo or YouTube. So we identified kind of like some problems with people being able to talk directly to their audience instead of going through an institution, and tried to address those problems with this project. And so the first problem is the nonlinear format. So Civic TV is, oh, that's a video, okay. Civic TV is, we wanted to create an environment where you were sitting in a seat and had to experience the video within a larger program. That was really important to us. So if you wanted to see someone later on in the program, you had to sit through the people we put before it. And that was something that was a motivating factor behind the project. And also this idea that if you were like momentarily bored, you would stay tuned in. And that's how we kind of like to think about television in this format. And I'll explain where the television part of it comes into play. And I know the first thing that I kind of want to address there is like, if this sounds like manipulative or coy, it's because like this project really is like, we're trying to address the expansiveness of the internet through a focused audience. And so it's very like much a reactionary project, I think, as opposed to the Rezo book, which was more of an explorative project. So the second reason that we wanted to embark on this kind of journey, and I should explain that each Civic TV is 5 or 6 artists, and they each get up to 10 minutes to do whatever they want, and then that program is then edited together like a TV show, with animations introducing all of the artists into a 60-minute program. And so each tape, the first one was 30 minutes, but each tape is after that was a full hour. And so I'm going to show you the animations that we make for each of the artists to try and create a seamless program that's linear. So yeah, you're there. One more time. So these are the intro credits. And then There's more, sorry. All right, sorry. Those go on for a while. There's 4 volumes. But anyway, these are stills from the actual video work that comes after those animations. But like I said, yeah, the kind of approach behind curating the program was, well, one thing was the kind of the whole idea of objecthood, like how do we introduce objecthood to video, and part of as I'm sure you can tell from the kind of graphic approach to this, part of this harkens back to like an era of public access TV, like Glenn O'Brien's TV Party, to name one of many, or Night Flight, where there was a real artist interaction with public television programming, where like video work was created for television. And so we wanted to provide that format, but not being people that have a television network, we thought that this was the best way to do that. And then it just so happens that by making these tapes, we managed to get some of them broadcast as a result of that. So the project has kind of expanded to include also a broadcast portion of it, whereas the TV part of it was just a reference to the way that the program was put together at first. So we're pretty happy about that. But yeah, so I guess if you want to look at Civic TV from kind of like the conceptual framework, there's the linear model of video programming. There's a harkening back to art television. There's the objecthood of the tape itself and giving video artists some way to be able to promote their work as an object. And then there's the exhibition component, which is, and I have to say, this is like something, it's hard for me not to walk around. I feel like a tech, or what's it called? A TED talk or something. But there is kind of like I'm really bad with expressions, but someone told me like rising tide lifts all boats idea at work here. And that's that, like, with the Rezo book and Civic TV, what we're trying to do is promote local artists and emerging artists in the Bay Area. And so a lot of the times we group artists that have international recognition with those emerging artists as a way to kind of like exhibit this work within larger galleries and institutions, and I've always kind of thought of it as like a back door. And yeah, I think it's important to be like transparent about that, because I think often people are very like coy about that. And so, you know, as a result of Civic TV being an object that's sold primarily at book fairs as a published work, it's managed to be screened in theaters and auditoriums like PS1 and the Geffen, and is in the collection of the Getty and the MoMA and the SF MoMA and the Whitney. So for a lot of these artists, that was really important for them, because they've just started making video work, and it's a way to get their eyes on by like a more international audience, and also an audience of curators and institutional figures. So yeah. This is an example of some exhibitions that have been like solely devoted to Civic TV. This was at a space in Los Angeles called Mandujano Cell, which is a space run by Hazel Mandujano and Juan Capistran, who you probably recognize from our Los Angeles Rezo book. And like I said before, there's these relationships that we kind of built up doing a lot of these group projects that have manifested in other ways. This is like our launch for Civic TV Volume 4, which was at our bookstore in, on Sacramento Street here in San Francisco. And we we, instead of presenting it as one program, as we had done in the past, separated all the videos into monitors and faced them out towards the street so that people walking by could watch them. Yeah, I think that's it.
One thing we've meant to do this whole time but have been neglecting is we have some T-shirts to give out to people paying attention. And so I'll go back to the first one. Can anybody name one of the artists that was in the Xerox book, the original? Who was that? Silhouette. That is correct. Medium or large?
And then this one is a little harder. Can anyone tell me what the name Civic TV is a reference to? Yeah, good job. Do you want a large, a medium, or there's one large Blockbuster shirt? Medium, okay. That's like a longer shot.
Now you know that that's a thing that's going to keep happening. This next project is probably the most sort of wow, look at that fetishized book object project that we've done. Because we felt like we had to do at least one of those as publishers. And it's with an artist from Venezuela named Ignacio Perez Merwane, who is living and working in Los Angeles now. But Ignacio, for several years, a lot of his work is concerned with materials and where they come from. He's done projects about gypsum mines and how drywall is made, and creating sculptures from drywall that he's made himself from mining gypsum, and so on and so forth. So one of his more expansive projects that he's been doing for years centers around the Chuquipacata mine in Chile, which is the largest open pit copper mine in the world. And that copper mine is owned by the Guggenheim family. That's where a lot of their money comes from. And so he was kind of interested in that relationship, the Guggenheim's relationship to the country of Chile and specifically the surrounding towns, but also the Guggenheim's relationship to Frank Lloyd Wright and his idea of organic architecture, that architecture should sort of blend into its surroundings and become one with its surroundings, and how problematic that is that all of the funding that was given to him to create these organic architecture buildings comes from destroying the land, essentially. So it's kind of a really heavy loaded process here. And Ignacio, you can see in the book, had spent a lot of time in Chile at this mine, which is in the center image of the book there. And had developed a couple exhibitions while he was down here. The one you see on the right is in sort of a defunct kiosk in Santiago. It's in sort of the middle of this brutalist garden. And so anytime we're working with an artist, especially if it's a project that they've already begun, we oftentimes prefer to work with artists from the very beginning to imagine a project specifically for book format. So it's not a documentation of previous work. It's not like a traditional catalog in that sense. Like the book is the show, it's the artwork. But with Ignacio, we were kind of so intrigued with this project, and there was so much there about materials that we felt like we could really kind of go nuts with the materials of fabricating the book itself. So in doing that, you can see there's basically 4 elements to this project. It's this clamshell box. It's stamped with copper foil. And then on the right, you see this copper bowl that Ignacio was making himself from copper that came from the mine in Chile, in a sort of traditional process of spinning copper to create these bowls. And then he put different solutions inside these bowls to let them oxidize and get that green pigment that's referred to as verdigris, that was the green pigment for painters for thousands of years. So he gave us these bowls, and we scraped some of the pigment out of each of them, and used it to dye an acrylic ink to screen print these postcard images from the mine that Ignacio wanted to kind of send out to people later. And then underneath that, there's a better image of both of those. And then underneath that is a booklet explaining and documenting the entire project, which is again stamped in foil and even stapled with copper staples. And like many of the other books, we put on an exhibition with Ignacio again at Los Angeles Contemporary Archive that we'd mentioned before. And displayed and sold the editions and works that came out of this series of investigation. It's time to do another quiz. Who can name 3 uses of copper? Sure, that works.
Do you want Blockbuster or Tower Records? All right. Okay. So the last project. You guys are almost done. So this is this is called the Stroke series. I know why it's called that, but I really regret the name. It didn't occur to me at any point in this process that it was mildly pornographic, but but the kind of like main investigation is kind of summed up by that. And anyway, this is an ongoing project with David Bass. So we wanted to show 2 things that were group projects and then 2 things that were focus projects with one artist. And David Bass is an artist living in San Francisco and actually a fellow grad school graduate, or I went to grad school with him, however you say that. And he was a painter in grad school, and soon after graduating decided to work with 3D modeling. So he kind of like abandoned his painting practice. And at first that was about creating very simplistic 3D forms and printing them out as 3D objects, and then like using the 3D printers, and then mixing them in maquettes with other objects that he had sculpted and drawings to create kind of like photo maquettes. And so, sorry, let me get my notes here. So as at first the process was really additive, and we wanted to come up with, and I wanted to come up with a way to work with Bass that was not after the fact. So to put that more clearly, like I wanted to work on the book while he was working on the artwork. And not so much in a collaborative way, but in a way where he would pass off objects to me when he was done with them, and I would start making the book with those objects. So the first book, which I don't know how many photos of the inside. Oh yeah, I do. The first book ended up being those finished photographs of the maquettes next to Riso prints that were the objects just directly made on the scanner bed, so there was no computer interface there. So trying to go from this digital form to an analog form, but with no mediation. And so, you know, being the first book that I made with him, we made a very small edition, and the process was pretty involved. So we decided to case bind it, which later we kind of abandoned that. Anyway, so moving on to stroke volume 2, this one became increasingly complicated because we wanted to maintain this relationship that we have of making the work at the same time. Baez was sending me images as soon as he was finishing them, and I was trying to do 4 color separations of them on the risograph. But also those images that he was working on became part of a larger film. So this actually ended up happening before the first Civic TV, and it's the first VHS that we produced. And the cover is a lenticular image, so there's kind of like the book of all the still images from the film, and then the lenticular is kind of the bridge to the video, which is animated, an animated 15-minute film, 15 minutes. And so this became like considered stroke volume 2. Wow, it's just like the name just gets worse every time you say it. And so you can see here that I made a hardcover and a soft cover and the VHS. So this is where we start thinking about like different incarnations of the project and how we can have these different, not only different forms, but different price points, which is an important thing for us, especially because the entire goal of our collaborative project as publishers is to have people be able to collect artwork with a very small budget. So then these are the interior shots of stroke volume 2. And these are all, you can see, I'm just gonna point them briefly, like the risograph prints. And then these are the digital ones. I mean, it's kind of obvious. Or I don't know. Like the fucked up ones are the Riso ones. And then stroke volume 3, this was probably like the most expansive project I've worked on with one artist, and I should say we all worked on it, and it was a book that we printed entirely ourselves, case bound, and it came with we do all of our production in-house, except for when we're producing objects, i.e. the copper bowls, stuff like that. But just working on this book was a very elaborate ordeal, and the approach for this one, we wanted to change it up once again with us and David's history, and that's that we decided to make a book that was a film journal, like a behind the scenes of the movie, but there was no behind the scenes of the movie because it was entirely 3D modeled. So that meant kind of extra work for David, unfortunately, and work for me in trying to create these scenes that are meant to look like the 3D models were photographed, kind of like behind the scenes while they're waiting for the next scene to start, which is kind of an unusual concept now that I think about it. Yeah, none of this is real. So you can kind of see how in this, that photo's kind of small, huh? But anyway, like these objects were created after the fact and trying to resemble the objects that are 3D modeled in the animation of the film. So this is part of an exhibition that was at Vacancy in Los Angeles, and it was the exhibition component of the film. So basically, if we go back to the beginning, there was a book with a download code where you could download the film, and then there was the exhibition component of that process. And the very last project that we're going to show you guys today is called Simon's Acres, and right now it's a film installation as part of Bay Area Now 8 happening at YBCA, and it is David Baez's latest film, and it talks about the kind of entropic end of the universe by way of a farmer that is working on raising a crop to try and feed it to a singularity. So it's a very fantastical work, and we created this book that is sort of like a scene-by-scene description of the film. So it's kind of a way to own the film without owning it, was the motivation behind this. In a similar, I was really inspired by the La Jetée book that Zone Books made, and the kind of relationship between a film that's really composed of many stills, and the book form, because those are such similar formats to a film that's made of stills and a book. So yeah, please go see Simon's Acres. It's at YBCA. And oh yeah, sorry, there's a sculptural component of the projection. So these are, again, objects that were made for the film that were then 3D printed and hand embellished by David. What's the next one? Oh, here's more sculptures. I should mention that the next part of me and both David's collaboration with each other is going to be a video game company called Antenna Research, and I think that should that be like the last trivia question? Yeah. Okay. Can anyone tell me what Antenna Research is a reference to? Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Here's a T-shirt. It's a reference to Existence, which is another David Cronenberg film. So look out for that soon. We're going to be launching proprietary game consoles that only have one game. So each consoles are collaborations with a singular artist in the form of an edition. And this is our bookstore.
Yeah, this is just a shameless plug for our bookstore, where it's very tactile. You can touch everything. And this is our latest collaboration with Tower Records. I don't know if they know about it. That's it.
Oh yeah, if you want to touch anything, any of these things, come touch them. Also, I wrote this. I don't know why. Just come touch them. Okay.
Whoa. So tactile. So tactile. Where is my say? Do we got? Yeah. Okay, I should also thank Kulpa for closing their store today so they could be here. So you definitely should go visit tomorrow. You open tomorrow? Yeah, we're open. Tomorrow, so go check it out then.
Up next, we have Moos AC. There he is.
Hi.
Yeah, okay.
Where is he?
How's it going?
Okay.
Oh, it works.
Huh?
Oh,
The
it's
mic.
working.
Oh, perfect.
yeah.
He's mic'd and everything.
We're gonna
Ready?
intro
Yeah.
you first.
We're gonna intro you.
Okay.
Okay, here we
Should
go.
I go back over
No, you
there?
can-
No,
and
just
come
stay
back?
right there. You're good. You're good.
Cool.
Moos is an Oakland-based visual artist and founding member of the Black Male Artists Collective. His masterful eye for color and composition is something that every artist and designer can learn from. His bright, intricate paintings play with the concept of the validity of memory, but one thing is for certain: after engaging with one of his works, it is not something that you will soon forget. Please welcome to the stage, Moos AC.
Wow, that's so nice. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, can we turn the lights on? So dark. Right? I don't know. I might be all around. So I am gonna do this a little bit differently, and kind of just rant. I have like some prepared rants. Basically, so my name is Moos AC, and I didn't prepare any slides, but here are some images that they were kind enough to put together. A little bit of background about myself. I was born in Long Beach, California, and I now, someone over there? A whistle? Huh? And now I live and work in Oakland, California. I went to school at SF State and got a BA in sociology. And that's all I have to say about that. So the way I'm gonna approach this, I think, is kind of just talk to you all about, well, I should say I don't really identify as a graphic designer or a tactile artist at all. I would really prefer if no one touched the work. You might, get something on it. But I guess you could if you really wanted to. And I'm also not really a public speaker. So hence the rants. I plan to do just like a bunch of rants. I do identify as a painter, as a friend, as a lover, creator. I identify as blackness and whiteness. But, I don't really identify as a graphic designer, even though my work is very graphic. It's just kind of how it turns out. But basically, I'm going to talk about intention, process, love, inspiration, and community, and how it pertains to me, because I think that all artists should be like somewhat narcissistic. And for intention, I'm going to start off by talking about intention. And for that section, I'm going to read some writing, some pretty sappy writing that I write in my sketchbooks and notebooks. And in that writing, I asked myself the question, why create art? And what do you want your art to do? Or what do you want your work to do? And I responded to myself by saying, for me, intention comes from the warm, comforting feeling of self-intrigue and exploration as a therapeutic practice that has spiraled out of control and has snowballed into a compulsive necessity. I create art because I must. I'm addicted to it. I'm addicted to bringing something new into the world, to showing myself something new, something fresh. I'm addicted to testing new ideas and questioning myself at every step. I'm addicted to the pain of self-doubt, to working through that doubt until the work and I have come to a compromise or an agreement. I'm addicted to developing a human relationship with the work, treating it with empathy, letting it tell me something, and not projecting strict ideals onto it. I'm addicted to the labor, the satisfaction, the mistakes, to growing, to learning, to challenging myself. I'm addicted to the realization that art is as certain as death. It's a big one for me. Really addicted to that. I want the work to express like an unseen part of me, to scream or to whisper for me. I want the work to want to live with people, to be loved by people as I want to be loved, to make vulnerable my insecurities, to be a personal riddle to my own mind, I want the work to transcend to places I cannot, and I want it to be an extension of my ephemeral body. So none of that is tactile. It's very much in the theoretical. But I find that those intentions are like what drives me, like why I'm here, Like I studied sociology, but I've always had that connection with art in my work. And I couldn't imagine really like a life without it. So that's kind of my intention to making work. And whatever your intention is, that's great. But I think it's important to find that intention and to grab onto it and kind of, exploit it in a way. Then I'll actually go into talking about my actual process a little bit more relevant to the theme. So basically, like I was saying with intention, the process is kind of like a push and pull, you know, like really developing this kind of relationship with work in general. You know, struggling with it, having a loose idea, but allowing the work to unfold on its own, I think is really important. And kind of giving it the respect that I think all work deserves, you know. You know, I often consider it like developing a dialogue with the work. Like, I say something and it says something back, and we argue, and then we come to resolution. You know, and like I said before, there's a lot of empathy in that, you know, allowing the work to be its own entity. But what that looks like in the studio is, you know, always approaching work with an open mind, do a lot of loose sketching in this sketchbook and many others. But yeah, in the studio practice too, I really, actually I'm going to talk about that in my next section, which is, I want to talk about the idea of love. You know, and how important it is to like really love what you're doing, you know. To where it's like outside of commodity, outside of trying to get gallery shows, you know. That's never really an intention. It's just a product of the work. Having the work live outside of consumerism while also being in it, you know, it's like, I don't know what they teach you at school here, but it's pretty hard to like jump into art and creative work and just expect to make a bunch of money, make a living wage. It's very difficult. And a lot of people struggle with that. And, you know, people even ask me, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you get a gallery show? How do you sell work? And that's like a terrible question, because that's not part of it. It's just like a product of really caring about your work and loving your work. I think the more intention and love and respect you give to your work, regardless of what it is, it shows. And people are smart. People see that. Like, it becomes apparent in the work, and then everything else is secondary. So my advice is to definitely have a day job. Until you get to that point, I guess. I don't know. You know, and I love like every process of the work. You know, I build my own stretcher bars from scratch. I like to go to Home Depot and just get 2x4s, and you know, you have there's like a relationship part in every aspect. You know, like even going to the store and like buying the stuff to build stretcher bars, and using a table saw, which is like really like aggressive and it's kind of scary, but then it's like, okay, you got to respect the table saw because it's like cutting your wood and could cut your hand. So it's like, you know, you have to like treat every step with like a certain amount of care. Like stretching the canvas is like the worst part for me, but it's also like I love the monotonous pain. It's like pretty like masochistic, you know. But and like the layers of gesso, it's like before you even touch the canvas, it's already like a piece of work, you know, like something that you have put so much craft and care into. And I think it translates into the work, you know. You end up treating them like little kids, to where like there's like one piece that I have that I have it, if whoever buys it, if anyone ever buys it, has to like take me out to lunch. as part of it, because I want to like talk to them about why they want it, kind of like maybe even coax them to not get it, because I don't know, you know, you want to make sure like your special pieces go to like a special place. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about process, love, intention. Another thing I would like to talk about is just general inspiration, which is more of a straightforward thing about my work. I am really inspired by, by spaces. So as I said, like I'm a sociology student, so I'm really interested in the connection of people. But I don't like have done figurative stuff, but like it doesn't like really excite me that much. So I actually like to, I like the challenge of kind of like making a social point about like relationships and people and myself through the spaces that we create, and through looking at the home, interiors and exteriors, public spaces, community spaces, and what that tells us about the people who might inhabit those spaces. Ideally, I would like the viewer to see themselves as a potential inhabitant of this very fantastical space. And another aspect of it being fantastical is this notion of memory that I like to, where I get a lot of the geometric abstraction from. So a lot of the way I describe my paintings often, my elevator pitch is, let me get it. Two-dimensional planes of color put together to represent skewed three-dimensional spaces. Yes. That's my elevator pitch. And with that, it's like I'm using these two-dimensional shapes, playing with dimension in certain ways that kind of are always leaving, well, hopefully, ideally, leaving the viewer with a sense of this skewed perspective that allows them to kind of like see what they want to see and see the spaces that might like resonate with them. Everyone, it's really interesting because when I ask people, I don't really ask people. People just tell me what they see all the time. And like, oh, this must mean this, and this must mean that. And I'm like, sure, yeah. So when people tell me what they see in paintings and what they think, it's always so interesting because everyone sees something different, always. And always has like a different connection and reaches people in different ways and starts these like really interesting dialogues. To where I want to start like just not even telling people what it is, and maybe like making the titles even vaguer. Like this piece over here. This is actually the piece that you have to take me to dinner for. And I made the frame too, this is like the first time I made a floating frame. And I remember when I showed that painting, I was like, people were like, oh, wow, nice painting. I was like, yeah, what about the frame, though? I was so happy about the frame. But this piece is called Where I Grew Up. And it's like a childlike kind of fragmented reality of like maybe a place that I grew up. Kind of put together with all these different sketches that I've made about different parts of houses and kitchens and bathrooms and things like that. And when I think about memory, it acts in this way of always like not being sure of itself. I'm not very sure of my memory. And it becomes an issue because I'm like, did that really happen? Who was actually at that party? Like, I don't really remember. And I usually, mix people up and, forget some people, think I remember some people. But these works are my way of like kind of like talking about that. And like, you know, the spaces aren't really sure of themselves. They blend into the next. Kind of rooms become, or like, is it inside, is it outside? They're not really, they're always changing, they're always in flux. And that's something I really enjoy about the piece. Like I still find new things in that one, you know, a little bit. And that becomes really thrilling for me. And I always like to hear what other people have to say and what they see. So yeah, I'm really inspired by the concept of memory. I'm inspired by my surroundings, the people around me, the colors around me. Believe it or not, I was only painting in black and white like 3 years ago. Like I just kind of jumped into color, and now I'm just like obsessed with color. Especially this green color. I've been using that a lot lately. It's such a hard one to use, and it's really like kind of ugly, but I like it. But yeah, you know, and it's like I just kind of like jumped into color, and it was heavily inspired by living in San Francisco. I did a project when I was at SF State, but this was like my own personal project. I was just painting for fun. And I was doing something on like the buff abstractions, what I call them. I think it's like not even like a really unique like subject, but you know, just like the kind of abstractions that are built when people are, you know, tagging, and like the wall owner like covers it up, and they're covering it up like based on like no aesthetic value at all, and it's just like a power struggle between like the graffiti writer that's like, oh, this is my space, and then the wall owner's like, no, this is actually my space, and the city's gonna find me if I don't cover this up. So you get this like really pure abstraction from just this like power dynamic, which I just like thought was super cool. So then I was like, this is like 2014. I was like taking tons of photos and cataloging like all the different like buff abstractions and the sunset and the hate and the mission. And I was realizing like, oh, wow, look, San Francisco's so colorful, you know, coming from Southern California, everything's like the same 3 colors. And here everyone's just like going all out and just painting their Victorians as all types of colors. And, you know, so you get all these different colors, and that's kind of like what brought me into to working with color in general, just like being inspired by San Francisco. So I'm going to talk about one more thing. I'm going to keep it short. I'm probably talking too fast. But I'm going to talk about community and the importance of community. Because really, like everything is based in community for me. And without community, I wouldn't even be standing here right now. Because, you know, it wasn't school, it wasn't anything but just, you know, the people around me and the people around you all, you know, like it's important to connect. And like I was talking about narcissism earlier, like the piece itself is like a very personal thing, and I'm in the studio and it's like me and the work, and I'm like, you know, I'm trying to satisfy this thing for me first. I'm like trying to produce something interesting and something new and fresh for me. But then after that, it's like you want like some sort of validation, or to know that you're not crazy, or to like show somebody, to like let that out. You know, it's like built up, and then you're like what do you think? And I think it's important to have that community to share work with. You know, that's like been such a thing for me, and honestly, why I'm still in the Bay Area. You know, like I just can't leave because like all my community's here. I can't go, even though it's so overpriced. But like, you know, so like having the community, that's kind of what I'll briefly talk about the collective that was mentioned, Blackmail. That was built on a group of us who would just we would just have sketch nights, you know, where we would all, like me and a group of friends, like 5 friends, would get together and sketch, show our sketches to each other, have critiques. We even had like, you know, we got like our friends to model for us, to do like figure drawings, and it was like there that there's 5 of us. We're all 5 black males. So it started with one of our friends, like, who put it together. He wanted to call it blackmail, but it's like MAIL, kind of like blackmailing the status quo, I think is what he said. It was just kind of cheesy. But, you know, I really loved it because it was this group of us. Our main intention was to come together to like renegotiate what it means to be a black male in America, which is heavily stigmatized, which I'm sure you all know. And, you know, we thought as artists, we're like the softest group of guys like around, you know? So we're like, whoa, we're not scary. So we really wanted to take control of that narrative and take it back. And I really loved, we had a show, our first show was at Luggage Store, which was super nice of Daryl and Lori. If you've ever been to the Luggage Store, it's like, I don't know, it's my favorite gallery. It's so, like, they're so nice. Really, like, threw us a bone, like, just these random guys, like, I don't know, I think they just liked the idea. But, you know, I was showing work, like, similar to this, and it was interesting because people who went to the show, a lot of people came up to me after, and by a lot, like, maybe, like, 2 dudes, were like, like, oh, that wasn't what I expected, you know? A lot of people were like, wow, that was so, you know, different. It's kind of like when people are like, wow, you talk so well for, like, a black person. And I'm like, dang, okay, like, you know, and like people like literally like expected a show that was like, you know, called Blackmail, 5 black males. Our logo was like a fist. I think they really expected to see images of like flipped over cars and like, or like flipped over cop cars, and it's just like, I don't know, kind of like anger and that kind of work that like is like expected from the black community, you know, like we kind of like put into this box where like, oh, this is like blackness, and then everything else is not. So I was really excited to show work with this, like, the show is carrying the social message, like the show itself, the act of it being a thing was the social message, where then I had the freedom within that to show what I wanted to do, to like show the work that I wanted to make and not feel like I was like not doing the right thing for like making this type of work, you know. I look at a lot of artists and like, you know, from the history of modern art and contemporary art, and you know, a lot of them are like white dudes, and I'm like, you know, I could do that, like I could make like abstract work, even though it's abstract but still very representative, you know, playing with that line. But you know, I felt like compelled to like do that, and basically this rant is coming from how important community is, you know, and how like every opportunity that I've had is like rooted in the community that I have established here in the Bay. And I think it's like really important for specifically CCA, like SFAI kids to know it's like you are like the people who are making the communities out here, even though this situation was not a CCA thing, but like now functioning in the Bay Area art world, it's all spaces created from alumni from here and SFAI, and like everyone's kind of like, utilizing space in certain ways and really like putting each other on and lifting each other up, and kind of like pretty much the main reason what like really keeps me here is that like that energy, that creative energy that's so almost like outside of commodification. Like there's a lot of people that just everyone just makes work to make work. It's like an impulse instead of like some type of competitive who you showing with like facade, which I find in like other major cities, New York and LA. But yeah, community is really everything for me. Without it, it's like I don't even know, like, who would you be making work for? I think like asking that question is really important. Like, who are you making work for? If you're a graphic designer, that's cool. That's good. I'm pretty sure probably a lot of you are graphic designers. And you're working for it's a job. You're making money, but you're doing something that you love. And I would urge you to do something on the side. I'm pretty sure probably most of you do. I don't really know. But do something for you. Do something for your community. Get involved. Now I'm just preaching. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Also, I feel really bad that I hogged this from the Kulpa guys. Like, I should take this off. I really like it, though.
It's pretty rad.
I do.
Yeah, good job. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Okay, guys. We're going to take a quick 30-minute break, coffee break in the lobby. I think there's snacks, coffee, and I think brownies. We'll come back here in 30 minutes at 3 o'clock with Tommy Perez, who I wanted to shout out, led a really amazing burger making workshop yesterday. Thank you, Tommy. Okay, we'll see you here in 30 minutes. Okay, can everyone slowly stop being tactile over there? There will be more time to be tactile.
Tommy Perez is a Southern California-based artist and designer and papercraft artist. His work has captured my heart and imagination, and I'm sure it'll capture yours as well. It's whimsical, fun, and whip smart. He creates worlds with flying Technicolor hamburgers and animated Oreo cookies that defy the laws of physics. His level of craft is enviable, and on top of that, he's just a really swell guy. So let's welcome to the stage Tommy Perez.
How's it going? Can you hear me good? Yeah? It's like so dark over there. I can't see anyone. All right, let me plug in. That's a different one. Sorry, I got the new laptops, you have to have this new dongle, so I need to put that in. And then do I need to switch? You sure? Oh, there we go. Whoa, you're gonna see in like everything. All right, so I'm Tommy Perez. I just want to say thank you to CCA for having me, Rachel, Heather, Tina for putting this together. This is super awesome. So I'm gonna take you through a little bit of my story, how I got here, share some work with you, and share the value and like importance of passion and side projects, because that's pretty much like, spoiler alert, that's how I got here, was by passion and like side projects. So like the most of you, I started in art school, and so there's some things that I wish that I knew when I was in art school, about like fail fast, learn fast. Like I use that as like a mantra still. But like I think in school it's definitely like super important to try so many things, like experiment, figure out what works for you, and don't dwell if it is a failure. It's only a failure if you don't take something and then learn from that. So it's a space. So failing, figuring out what didn't work, and then moving on, like right away, and then trying something new, and then applying what did work from that previous attempt. So yeah, experiment. Find what this is where, like I figured out I wish that I would have tried and explored so many different mediums and like techniques and programs when I was in school, and this is where like. I think in school, because like now I'm doing a lot of motion and like animation, but like in school I thought I was going to be strictly your traditional graphic designer, and I'm going to be like doing branding, and I'm going to be doing like package design. And so we had to take like a motion like graphics class, and I was like, oh, like I didn't take it super serious. And like now I wish that I would, like I know After Effects, but I don't, because so everything I do is all in Photoshop, because that's like super just like what comes natural to me. But I wish that I would have been open to the idea of different possibilities and avenues that my career could have taken me. So definitely be open to that. So yeah, always be open to those things. Also, like school is almost like right now you're in one of the safest places that you can be to experiment and fail. You have like this built-in community like that is just willing to help you, and like it's hard to find that after you get out of school. Like so, it's like taking this community that you have here and just like expanding that and like leveraging that, and just really like loving that and being open to people's like opinions, like critiques and everything. It's yeah. Definitely. I mean, like that's like something that you should carry on as well into your career, because you don't know everything, and like your ideas aren't always the right idea. So it's like collaboration is awesome. So after school, I graduated. I freaked out for a long time because I didn't find a job right away, but I somehow, I guess it kind of makes sense because like a lot of my stuff was super colorful, that I got a job working with an American paint company called Behr. And I originally got brought on as just to do their corporate newsletter. And so like I was like really into editorial and like publication. So I'm like, I'm going to make this thing as cool as I can. I'm going to make it like a magazine. So I created like these mock ads, these like kind of like the tear sheets where you could subscribe, and like had a lot of fun doing this. It's not like the best like thing, but like this was definitely what got me in the door to do. Like the art director took notice, and then he was like, we want to bring you on to do our package designs. So these are a bunch of like package designs that like never saw the light of day, because for the most part it was usually like, we want to do like this crazy revolutionary package, and then I was like, all right, let's do it. And I would throw out all these options, and it's like, no, we're just gonna add a drop shadow to this letter now. And I'm like, all right, that's awesome. But it totally like helped, like being able to like you have like this limitation of this can, and it's like, how many times can you design it? Like every week pretty much was like a new like challenge. And this is literally just like the fraction of like what I did, because I was there for 4 years, and super awesome. I had to do pretty much everything from concept to creation to like handing it off and like pre-press and like going on like press checks. Super awesome. But it still was a corporate job. Whoa. Sorry. It was still a corporate job. And so there was like some trying times. And then so towards like the end of my time there, I was starting to notice that I was like pretty much designing in autopilot. And I was like, this isn't, like, if I want to continue to grow, this isn't where, like, I should stay. So I realized I got burnt out. I was getting really, really angry, like commuting there. And I was like, this isn't who I want to be. And I knew that, like, this, in order for me to further my career, I was like, I need to, like, figure something else that, like, can, like, keep me motivated and, like, creative outside of what I was doing there. So I knew that I didn't want to, like, spend my days in front of the computer, like, all the time. So I was like, I really want to do, like, some stuff with my hands again. And so I made a stupid, I'll let you get a little video picture of that, Tina. I saw that. So I was like, I'm going to make a dumb little, well, I said dumb and it's not dumb. I made a side project for myself where this is, like, really, really bad. And I, like, never share this really with anyone, but this is, like, a little Tumblr, like, thing that I made. It's choice cuts, it's frequent paper cuts. But back in, like, 2011, I was like, I'm going to make something like every day, every week kind of thing. And, like, the easiest, like, starting point for me has always been to take, like, cues and notes from, like, from the alphabet. And I'm like, you have, like, a built-in thing there. It's like, so, like, A, I made an accordion kind of thing, and C, I made a bulldog. B, I made a bulldog, and C, I don't know how to spell. Sorry. So C, it was a cubicle at my work. That's my, like, screensaver right there. Was like the don't fucking procrastinate. Like, I love that. That was a constant reminder. Even though I sometimes do really better when I procrastinate, like, under pressure, I could knock some shit out. So I did this for a little bit. Oh yeah, D for Daft Punk. And, like, I made these are, like, the most, like, rudimentary kind of, like, paper things, but I wanted to take it to, like, the next level. And I'm like, I'm going to screen print glow-in-the-dark ink on these guys. I mean, just for my own enjoyment, and then make these little guys. And then I don't know why I made these little, like, paper pistachio things where it's like these, you have, like, X-Acto blades like for mustaches, and then I made, like, a straight edge one, and I made, like, this double-sided tape was like this handlebar kind of mustache. But just for weird fun, like, just to, like, stay creative outside of what I was doing day to day. And, like, this definitely helped, like, my sanity and, like, my creative levels. Like, I noticed I was getting happier. But I did ultimately leave that job. But I also reached out to friends on the internet. The internet is, like, amazing. Like, I've made so many friends that, like, I've never met, like, in person, but, like, through, like, the internet, social media, like, we've become really, really awesome friends. And so I had a friend, he had lived in Salt Lake, and we basically both bought the same paper toy monster book, and we each, like, it was like you'd punch out the monsters and then, like, you could build them. And so we each did that, and then we shared it, like, on our Tumblr, and, like, gave, like, a little review. It was, like, the dumbest thing, but, like, the best thing, which actually, like, led me to, like, figure out, like, how things folded, how things glued, how other people were doing it. So, like, that was awesome, and, like, made me just, like, that was helping me feel connected to people when I wasn't really happy with what I was doing, like, at that job. Make friends, not networks. Like, the friends and connections that you make, like, here and, like, later on, like, you never know where, like, the next, like, my main goal is to basically hire my friends. Like, if I can get to a point where I could hire my friends and I've, like, made it, like, that's what's, like, super awesome. And so, like, if friends can hire me, that's amazing. And it's, like, if I'm not able to work on a job, if I can, like, offer up a friend, like, that I know, I'm like, hey, like, so-and-so will be fucking awesome at this. Like, I'm not available, but bam, like, go talk to them. The internet is, like, forever. Also, like, don't be a dick on the internet, but also share everything on there. And, like, just, like, I'm not even joking. That's how I got here, was by, like, just throwing my work into people's face. And, like, it wasn't an immediate, like, oh yeah, like, do you know who Tommy Perez is? Like, whatever. And it's like, no, like, I shared stuff. I got, like, maybe, like, 3 likes, and I'm like, hell yeah, like, I was super, like, stoked on it. And then when it went to double digits, I was, like, super stoked. And then, but, like, it wasn't, like, an immediate, like, instant gratification kind of thing. Like, it took time. Like, I've been doing this shit for, like, a while. And, like, you definitely get discouraged at the beginning, but it's, like, getting over that hump. Like, just sharing stuff just to keep yourself accountable for, like, putting stuff out there. Like, I treated it like it was a job, pretty much, like, to share it to social media. So when I left that in-house job, I was like, I haven't worked at, like, a design agency. So moved to Minneapolis, and then went to a boutique design agency. Did some branding. I was like, I like branding. I don't like making the logos. I like extending the brand and like seeing what the story that the brand can tell after that. So like I partnered and collabed with like my partners there, and like they came up with like an awesome mark. And then I was like, how could this mark live on a semi, like website, like exterior signage and like business cards? So I liked this a lot. It was cool, super colorful. It felt like it was from me. I could see like working with like the 3-dimensional like outdoor stuff was like I would make like quick paper mocks of these, and I was like, this is kind of like where like I could see myself going. Then I got to work with Best Buy there, and made like some this is like a lot of illustration, and I'm like, I'm not really an illustrator or a letterer, but I definitely enjoy it, and so like this is where I got to like dabble a little bit in that. And then when I would share this stuff, like I would animate these things like coming out, just to showing like how these things were actually used. And I started noticing that I liked creating these little dumb GIFs. So these are all like precursors to like where I am now. But yeah, passion projects. They're seriously like, this is when I started doing more and more passion projects, like after work, and like how invaluable they are to like your like sanity. It's just like awesome to like, if you feel like you're getting burnt out, it's like take a step away and like procrastinate on something else, and like just make a bunch of like stuff outside of what you're doing. So one of the biggest like side passion projects that have got like pretty much got me pretty like, this got like a lot of attention, good and bad. But I think that's definitely going to happen when you are putting work out there. And if you're not pissing anyone off, then you're not doing anything like really cool. So this is taking like a cue from the alphabet again. I mean, like it's definitely like my fallback, and I think it's like awesome. Everyone knows the alphabet kind of thing, so it's like, oh yeah, and it's like a really, really good starting point. So this was with my then 2-year-old daughter. I went back to freelancing at this time, and like she always wanted to be a part of whatever I was doing, and I was like, instead of like trying to like shoo her away and push her away, I was like, we're gonna make a project that's just for me and you, and we're gonna have our time together. And like I didn't literally teach her the alphabet this way. That like there was a lot of educational people were like, you are not gonna teach her the alphabet. You're going back and forth between letter forms and all this stuff. And I was like, no, we're just having fun, like making food stuff out of and then like eating it after the fact. But I think it was just really, really fun to like show her the process of a project from start to finish. Like I would kind of like, based on whatever the letter was, I would come up with like, okay, so like this P is gonna be made out of like these peanut butter pretzels, and I would kind of sketch it out, and like she would watch me like what I'm doing. And then we would play with like the actual pretzel before I made anything. And then I would make it. We'd have her hand in it. Like she knew exactly what to do. Like she knew, like she was like so good. I mean, like there's the Q one with like the quinoa. Where is that? Like right there. Like she knew exactly where to go, what to do. Like I wouldn't even tell her where to go. She would just like be like, I'm gonna do this right here this time. And I was like, oh my gosh, take a picture. And then so I would get the picture, and then we would like clean up and eat it. And so like from start to finish, like she learned like the process, like even before, you know, like how to basically start and like basically like pursue and like continue and then finish kind of thing. And like this project took a while, and you can see like it gets like quite a bit more like elaborate and like art directed. That's because like more people were watching, and like we're like, hey, when's the next letter coming? And I'm like, hey, why don't you back off? It's coming, just wait. So like that definitely made me a little bit more like, there was more pressure, but it was good because so like it made my work better. And then so yeah, there was like a hashtag, I don't think in here, but a hashtag out of hash browns. That was pretty fun. But yeah, this was, and like I could directly like you'll see future work or like work that I go through that basically came like right from this, from people seeing this, and this is just like a passion side project that I wanted to do on the side. This is just a side project when like people that I've looked up to and admire, like on like peers, like artists, illustrators, when they like reach out to me, they're like, would you want to be a part of this weird snacks like quarterly thing, which it was like a online thing, just based, it's like a curation of like artists just like sharing like their love for snacks. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm like, I kind of didn't do it right because I didn't do a snack. I did like a full-on Happy Meal. But I was like, oh, I mean, like, he was still into it. Like, there was like a gray area. So like, and this was like just for fun, and like I still get sent this back to me like as reference of like what like people want like me to do, and it like I think this is like I see this quite a bit just like floating online, and I'm like, oh shit, like I made that kind of thing, and it's like, was this for fun? So like, yeah, make shit for fun. Oh yeah, okay. So like I hate this project. This was I got asked to do like one of my first. Like I don't do like a lot of gallery shows kind of thing, and so this was for a pop culture gallery, and so like I wanted to make a poster, but I also like always like battle with like making something cool and interactive, and so I was like, I'm gonna make this thing where you could punch it out, and then you could put it together, and you could have like this mountable like trophy head, like. Because like when you go hunting, like it's not like I don't condone that hunting, but like for villains and like this, it's like awesome to put that like that to mount that head on the wall. And I was like, this is pretty sweet. And like it could live as a poster, but also if you built it could live that way as well. It didn't sell at all. It was like the worst thing. I was like, oh man. So like I ended up just giving them away at like another kind of like event, and so like people liked it then. People hated to pay for it, but they liked it when it was free. So that's cool. But this got me, but like this in turn still got me, like it gets me work, like by people sending like this, we're like, we want to make this for us kind of thing. Yeah, so yes, commit to the craft. Like you gotta, anything you're doing, like no matter what, like if you're doing like illustration, if you're doing design, if you're doing fashion, like if you're doing, if you're like making food, if you're, whatever it is, you have to commit to it and like put your whole heart into it. Because passion, drive, and commitment can beat out pure talent alone. It's like, it's kind of crazy because I mean, like, I'm kind of like living this because I'm not even the best at what I do, but the amount of work that I did and shared, and like you could tell, like I've been told, and it's like I try to do this all the time, is like show the fun that I'm having, like the fun that I'm having when well, that's not really coming out right. If you're having fun making something, it will definitely show through in the final piece kind of thing. And so like that's been told to me, and that's like exactly what I do when I'm making something. I mean, like it doesn't feel like work. Like now where I've gotten to, it feels like I'm just like having fun doing like another side project in a way, but someone's giving me money. And then yeah, make a lot of work, and then like and make more, because like the first time you start making something, it's not going to be the best. Like it's a given. So like the more you make, though, the more you're going to learn. And like you may have like this like thought in your head like of what you want it to look like, and it'll get there, but you just have to keep making a lot of shit to get there. Like I've made so much work that I haven't shown or shared in order to get here. So yeah, make a lot of work forever. So this is not really a side project, but no, this one kind of is. But it's like an ongoing thing that I do now, where I'll just make stuff and I'll tag it as this quick crafts thing. But this is kind of where it started from, where another side project thing that I started, where I was like, each night I'm going to make something, and then I'm going to photograph it and share it the next day. And so this was taking like, I was like, I need like a starting point, and I'm like, I'm gonna basically like jump on these national days that like now they're like super big, like, and so like right here they were like getting momentum, and so I was like, M is like on that day, like MTV was launched in like I forget the year, and then there's like National Ice Cream Sandwich Day, National S'mores Day, but like it's super easy to like just look at that calendar and be like, what do I want to make? I'm gonna make something for like Watermelon Day. I'm gonna make something for like National Coffee Day kind of thing. And so this was treating like Instagram and like social media and like the side project as a job, when like if I didn't have something going on, like, and I was like, I could sit here on my hands, or I could be proactive and make shit and like put it out there. And like this is where like I wanted to put the work. So the work that I was putting out there was the work that I wanted to get back. So this was definitely where I was starting. And so like you could definitely see like my style like starting to form here, and like this is kind of where like the quick crafts are now, and it's all basically just like a continuation of like putting shit out there, and like this is the kind of work that I wanted to get, and this is the kind of work that I'm getting now because I've shared so much of it, and this is kind of what I'm known for now. So a lot of weird, fun stuff in there. Bam! I feel like I'm going fast, but I'm really excited. So yeah, like, and then I started like adding a lot of animation into my into my work. Like I love like a static shot, but like I also love making these really weird and cool endless loops that like somebody, like the best comment is like, oh my gosh, I can't stop watching. And I'm like, yes, like I've done it. They're like, it's complicated, but like it's definitely yeah, that's what you want to, like companies want, like, I mean, like especially like in social, because I do a lot of social media like stuff, you want to be able to have somebody stop and like just hang out on that post for like a while, because then, you know, like it's all about that like weird engagement, but this is like endless loops really get it. Okay, and so yeah, I think this is one is actually like the first like, oh yeah, I'm a legit like maker out of paper person kind of thing. Washington Post reached out and they're like, we want you to make, we have this like fruit and vegetable kind of storage article. And I was like, I want to do that. But like, so the one thing I know is like editorial stuff does not pay well at all, but it's something that you kind of have to do when you get the chance. And so like, this was like I did like 10 of these things and I got paid like very, very, very little, but it was like once, like getting that email from Washington Post was like one of the most amazing things ever. It was like, I'm a legit, you know, like what, I don't even know what I am, like a paper maker, artist, designer, illustrator. But yeah, so like this was super fun. If you get an email from like an editorial person, you got to do it. Just saying. And then, so this job came directly from like, this is where like I'm gonna start like connecting the dots from like passion and side projects. And like this came from pretty much, they saw my A to Zoe project and they're like, food lettering, we're peanut butter, like let's make some stuff out of peanuts. And so like this whole campaign was based around like yippee and like celebratory stuff. And they're like, what can you do with, like they were partnering with Giphy, and they're like, we want to make some really fun gifts. And I was like, I'm gonna make some pulsating yippee peanuts. I'm gonna make like, it wasn't 4th of July, but I was like, I'm gonna make peanut fireworks that like turn into emojis. And then everyone loves like a selfie that just fucking goes like viral, and like everyone loves it. So you have a peanut taking a selfie. And then like, I didn't even know this, but like, they're like, we want to use this on like our Facebook, like header and like main page. And I was like, shit, let's do that. So like, it was basically just like, started off just being like a small gift, but then turned into like helping like them extend their whole like this campaign. And so it meant, yeah, it was awesome. And so this one actually almost brought me kind of like full circle with like how I started and like, well, why I got started like with my style. My style is pretty much based on like, I was super inspired by like 3D design, like somewhat low poly, and like this was a 3D motion studio, and like, so I wanted to make everything that I started like in like a 3D program, but I didn't know Cinema 4D or any 3D program. So I was like, I'm gonna make it like out of paper and photograph it and like try to emulate it. And so when they asked me to come in, they made all these pieces in 3D in that program. And I was like, you're done, you did it, like great, like why am I here? And then they're like, we want you to make it out of paper. And I'm like, no, I want to make that kind of like, you're already done. And then so it was just like a weird like, they had it already done, and like it was like legit, like, and like what I would want to do, but they're like, no, we want you to make like a violin, like a record player, sushi, and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, so we made that, and like this was like an awesome opportunity that I just basically came upon from like a friend. I keep hitting them, sorry. From a friend that I made an awesome like connection with, and she was, and like when the project came up, she was like, I knew exactly who to go to because I shared so much of my work, and it was like thrown in her face. And so this, even though this doesn't look like those weird headhunter trophies that I made, this is that project. This project came from that from those trophy heads. Because originally they wanted to make like a punch-outable kind of car, But it totally, like, budget-wise, they're like, well, we can't feasibly produce that kind of thing. They're like, can you make your other stuff for us? And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I can. And so this was just like for a lot of my stuff is like pretty much all, like, a lot of social. So this was for Tumblr, and they're like, this was for Ford, but they didn't want any kind of Ford branding, but they wanted it to, like, because I feel like in social you could have, with like clients, they could have like a bit more fun, and it doesn't have to be like exactly like, this is what Ford looks like, this is what Ford should look like, because they're totally trying to reach a different market. And so we got on Escape just like tackling every single environment that like is thrown at it. And it's basically just like this paper, like, it's a cardboard wheel that I just like had these different environments, and I just like nailed it to my wall, and I just like spun it around and took photos of it. And then you have this weird Fiesta just going through this maze thing. I don't know what when I sketched it, they're like, yeah, like they bought off on it like super quick. I was like, I don't even know but he's just driving around. They're like, yeah, but it's cool. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Oh yeah, so let me just like, this quick crafts, that like Cheers one up at the top, the hot chocolate spill was pretty much what got me. I'm gonna like just show you exactly, that got me this to work with Target, which is like, I mean, like, it was just the work that I was making and putting out was like getting me this work right here. I think it's awesome. And so like I teamed like at this time, Target's like social channel was doing like super fun things, and I was like, I would love to work with them. And so like then you get that email and you're like, what the fuck, is it real? Like, and then like you respond back and it is real, and so you make fun stuff for them. I partnered with them on some Valentine's Day stuff. We made like this love fest, like this flat light, like that I kind of like. I like to organize things neatly, kind of thing. We made this love test, like emoji thing. We made a Happy New Year for Canada, but then they pulled all their stores out of Canada, so that one like lived for a day and then got pulled. And then we did a April showers thing. That was probably one of the hardest things that I had shot to date, like at that time, because it was shooting like a real life product, and it was like, I don't know, I'm not a photographer like at all, and so like even though like everything, like I shoot everything, it's just all because like it's all just trial and error and like trying to figure it out. It's like, you know, like so shooting like clear plastic was the hardest thing in the world. I needed to not get glare and reflection, and I'm shooting in natural light, like with like a window right by me, and I think it was like overcasty, and so like I would just adjust the blind to get like extra shadows. But the trick on that hack was basically I just like cut out in Photoshop all the clear stuff, and I just basically like dropped the opacity, and it was like a super like, it was like super smart and apparent then, but when I was like doing, I'm like, I had no idea what to do. But that was, and then it's like suspended from my ceiling by a fishing line, and then like my daughter is laying on the ground like holding her arm up. So like if you saw like a pulled out photo, it would be like pretty hilarious, but it was fun. And I literally painted my whole wall blue for that. So you do what you gotta do for those jobs. And then I did a Target gift card, which was like my design like goal was to do a Target gift card. And so I did one for this Thanks Teachers one. So I was gonna quit design after that, but I didn't. Good thing. I kept going. And so then there's those times where this is another project with Gentleman Scholar. They're the same agency that I worked with on that Marriott, the 3D motion studio. They had like a really quick ask of like, they were doing a pitch for Clorox, and like they are like, it's the whole idea was these beautiful messes, and then like the Clorox wipe would clean it, and then like really like over the weekend they're like, we need like a pitch frame to try to win this pitch, and so I created this gloopy jelly lettering, pretty much like. Went to Home Depot, bought like these fake, those not, well, they're not fake. They're like those tiles that you just put together, like the wood sheets, like for like floor. Put that on like a tabletop, and then like mocked up like this gloopy lettering, and then they won the pitch, and they're like, they wanted me to keep working with them, but my schedule, there was a confliction, and so they're like, will you help art direct, like pretty much like remotely, the actual final campaign? And so this was like a moment where I just became like an art director, where I just sketched out what I thought like each of these scenes would look like, and then they were taken to actually completion, and they're like pretty awesome and amazing. But it's pretty crazy. Like you could just be like you could just sketch ideas and then pass them on, and then like somebody else could like make them. But it's like that's what's really cool working with like, I mean, like I'm not a letterer by any means at all, so like I definitely didn't want to make this like for the actual one, so it's cool that somebody else took over. But super tactile right there. Oh yes, and then so I worked with this is all about like, this is coming from like the friends and connections kind of thing. So during school, I made friends with her name was Jen, and she became the art director at Two Faced, and she saw my work and she was like, I want him to work on our stuff for like social campaigns. And so this was super fun making, like I did so many things for them, and like they were like one of the bigger ones that like took a chance on like just making these crazy like animations and like sets and stuff. And so we did like this waterproof mascara, jumps in a pool kind of thing, and then like comes out like, so it's normal, then it comes out waterproof. And they're like, we want donut floaties and pizza floaties and ice cream sandwich floaties. And then like this like Paris scene, made a bunch of retro pink TVs. This factory one is like what's in, like it's like the how it's made one is really fun. Like I like that one. Super hard. All this stuff right here is all shot with like natural. No, this isn't. This is like these cheap Amazon lights that I had. But like I started doing stop motion more and more, and then like now I use a program called Dragon Frame. It's like if you're gonna do stop motion, like get Dragon Frame. It's amazing. But like right here, I was just shooting blind and hoping that I like got enough shots and like to be able to put these together. But like, yeah, like it's not all about like the tools. It's like, it's just figuring out what you can and can't do with what you have. Oh, wow. Yeah. So then all of this work put me on the radar of some friends that I made. And I got a job at like one of like the biggest tech company. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but so they'd already been doing a really, really great job. They were trying to humanize Facebook in a way and like have like these little gifts that Facebook was like giving to you to let you know that Facebook cared about you. But there was a small team there and they were doing awesome, but they wanted to like scale and like ramp it up. So friends reached out to me, and then I said like, hell yeah, like I have to, like it was like something that you have to do for sure. Like you have to work there. So this was like a freelance opportunity that I had with them to like, I think they were testing me to see if they liked me at all and like how I jived with them. And so we created with another designer there. He made like this awesome he redesigned the help center, but they needed like these this header graphic and these little sub graphics as well. And so like it was basically just like a way of like telling a story like of what you could find on the help center. Like you could find help on your events, on your profile, on like your location stuff. But just another a really fun kind of shelfy kind of look. But this is on the help center, and like it's kind of crazy that like this is good and bad, because like people are super pissed off when they go here and and they see your graphic. It's like so it's like it's trying to make them be like feel happy, like, oh yeah, like don't worry, we're gonna help you, but we might not. So then I got brought on full time, and then so like the small team there, we were putting out some awesome work, and like so like this is a bit of what I got to touch when I was there. But we were making these, it kind of ties in with like what I was doing with those national days on like that side project, where we would show up on like Christmas, we would show on the holidays, on Valentine's Day, on like on sporting events, and like Facebook is giving this gift to you, like we appreciate you and care for you kind of thing. And so they wanted it to look like it was like so it's coming from the heart, like from like a person is making this for you. And like there really was people making it for you. So super, super awesome and fun. But the creative shifted and went back to being digital illustration. And so it was time to say goodbye. So I left there, went back to freelancing, and started doing more like, when I left, like I was like super fortunate, like I was freaking like out, like I was like, am I gonna get any work? I don't know. But then like the world knows when you need it, kind of thing. And so like people started reaching out again, and like this, they're getting pretty big now, but the Sparkling Ice company was like, we want to partner with you on some social stuff. And like, I think this is like some of the more fun stuff that I was doing. And like that, like Apple, like the pencil sharpener, and like out comes like apples. It's pretty fun, I think. Maybe, I don't know, I could be wrong. But so this is awesome and fun, and I loved working on this one. And so back, I would do like these like flat lays, like just for fun, and I made one based on like Home Alone, because I wanted to just basically like do something for Christmas, kind of thing. And then so companies see that stuff, and then they reach out to you and they want to work with you. And so I worked with Nick Jr. On creating these like little scenes where they wanted the user to guess kind of what the shows were without actually saying who they were. So you had like Paw Patrol, Blaze, and Shimmer and Shine. And so I worked with Marvel and 20th Century Fox on, they had this 2-year anniversary of Deadpool release that was coinciding with the Deadpool 2 release. And they had seen, like, as like a side project and like a passion thing, I would just basically kind of like do these, like me and my daughter were like super stoked on these movies coming out. So like we, like for Captain America, she was wearing like she had the shield, and like Iron Man, she had the Iron Man mask on, and like I would just let her with like food around her, and I would tag Marvel and Doritos or whoever it was. And like, you don't think people notice those things, but they like notice it, and like they were waiting for the, like, it took time, but they're waiting for the project to come up, and they're like, we saw you because of those, and now we wanted to work with you on like one of these actual like paid kind of thing. And so this one was super awesome. There was some like weird legal snafus with like the Crocs, where they were super cool. Like, I sketch everything out and I illustrate it and I get approval, and then after I make it, they're like, well, now our legal team like has seen it, and we like those Crocs are too crocky. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, I wish I would have known that before. So then in the final one, I had to go through every frame and basically make them like holeless. So sometimes it happens, but that kind of change though, it's worked into the contract where like they'll have to pay me for any additional changes after the fact. So cover your butt with like a contract, and like you'll be good. And so like I got compensated for that, like even though I had to go through all those frames and clean it up. Yeah, and then it's just like just having some fun with like story and concept, and like what can you do on like social media. Like here's another endless like loop kind of thing. This is just a gift card company that basically they wanted to do like a Memorial Day kind of like push kind of thing, and I'm like, okay, so like they're like, we want to do a grilling kind of thing, and I was like, okay, what could I do with that? And I'm like, I'm gonna have these gift cards basically just flip and turn into food and kind of thing that you would grill. And so like it's just a really cool, fun like animation. And like as I'm working more and more now, like I can see like my work getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like I'm creating these bigger sets, even though they're not like huge, they're still getting bigger. Like I'm making these like grills, I'm making like a full nightstand, and I'm making like the fence and everything, which is awesome because I totally see myself like and my work getting bigger in scale and like more like, yeah, just more interactive. Oh yeah, just make that shit, just make it. So still do side projects and passion projects. Like when like people reach out to me for like fun publications, like my friend has asked for basically the magazine portion of this, where it was he wrote a piece about VR Game of Scones, kind of like it's like a VR brunch kind of thing. And I'm like, what can I do with that? Like, I'm gonna make a weird brunchy VR goggle set you have like the toast is like the main headset. You have eggs as like your eye pieces, and you have bacon that are like your straps. And then I'm like, I'm gonna make a fun video like as well. And so it's just like I could have stopped there, but I was like, no, I'm gonna push that shit and I'm gonna make this cool animation. So like I like bringing stuff to life. So it's like whenever I can do that, I definitely will. And then this is another thing where like the internet is like fun and awesome. There's like these really awesome illustrators that put on this like social like initiative where they'll get two illustrators and they'll pair them together. One does a sketch and then the other has to like basically like finish their sketch and like make it like execute it. So I got this sketch from an awesome illustrator where he just gave me the ray gun and the candy, and then I just basically was like, all right, I'm gonna make this where like whoever is shooting this ray gun isn't really that good at shooting ray guns and they miss the mark, and then it becomes a banana. But it's like, this is like the dumbest thing but like the funnest thing, and like this is what keeps me sane too, like when I'm doing like work. Like if I'm doing something that isn't super like I'm like, if something has been ongoing for a while and I'm like, I need a break, I'm like, I'm just gonna do something on the side for fun that could get me more work as well. Oh, so how much am I good on time? All right, so we can go through a little bit of the process if you're interested. I mean, you kind of have to you have to do it. So sorry. So this is pretty much the process right here. This is how I work. I basically just illustrate it and then I just pop it right out of that computer and it's done. This is easy. I don't know why isn't anyone else doing this? But that's not really it. This is pretty much like closer to like what my process is, where everything starts off with like a sketch, like brainstorming, concepting. Then I do like a pretty tight like digital illustration in Illustrator, and then because that's where like the client has like the time to make any changes. Because once I make and shoot this stuff, it's super hard to go back and it's not super hard. It's like pretty much impossible. We have to reshoot it. And they don't want to pay for it, so we live in this digital one, and then that's where like I try to stay as close to as possible when I make the actual final piece. And then so I thought it'd be cool to walk through this project. This one was this is like the weirdest like collaboration where like Adidas reached out to me. They had this limited edition colorway coming out for these cookies and cream Ultra Boosts, and they're like, we just do what you want. It could be we're tying it around National like Oreo Cookie Day, but you can't say Oreo and it can't be an Oreo, but just like get as close as you can. So I was like, all right. So I send them over. This is like a super quick storyboard of like what my idea is. I can kind of read it. Big cookie sits on countertop with milk and other cookies. Cookie flips and a pool of milk grows below it. Cookie dunks in the pool of milk. Shoe grows up out of the pool of milk. Shoe can rotate around. Shoe will dunk back into the pool, and then the cookie grows back out, creating like an endless loop kind of thing. So like another time where it's like I was like, I need to make this loop only because like it's like a self-imposed thing, but like I mean it's really hard. But I love watching loops over and over again. So it's something I always try to do. So like and like these sketches are like not even good, but like if you could get like your idea across and like you have like some good words to back it up, like you could totally do it. Like don't be afraid to like sketch something out, you know, like even if you don't feel like you're the best like artist or like illustrator. So then they were like, that sounds awesome, keep going with that. And so like I in order to get buy off before I make anything, I send them like this is how I wanted to treat like the Adidas Oreo. And so like it looks like an Oreo, but it has Adidas branding, so it's like right in that line. And then I sent them this really quick, like super choppy, like idea of like how I wanted this like the shoe to like grow out of the milk, just so I can get buy off before I actually make anything. So they approved that. And then this is pretty much kind of like, so all the stuff I do is all pretty much like figured out and like designed in Illustrator. And this is pretty much like this is like not one. This is the one file with like, I don't even know. There's like so many more artboards, but everything is like blown out on like colors for like just for like consistency, and like makes it like easier for me when I go to cutting and everything. So I know what is what. And so yeah, like everything is figured out to size, to scale. This is like the top view of that countertop. So like everything is figured out before I do anything, because I hate, like I've had it where like something has come and bit me in the ass because like something was too small or too big. So everything is figured out like and planned out way before. So like I can't stress like the amount of like like pre-planning before you make anything. Like, I think is like super key. And like your time is money. Like if you're gonna be wasting time, then you're gonna be losing money. So this is like some of the making of the Oreos. So like for this was an animation where the Oreo dunked into like the pool, and so I had to make the all those Oreos had different states as it was disappearing. So like you would see a full Oreo, and then it would see like I don't even know like what would it be, like a 3/4 kind of thing, and then like a half. So like, but like a lot of tabs make really, really nice curves. And then this. So like this is like a weird spider Roomba looking thing. But like, so when I first made it, I was like, this looks like it looks like a cookie, like at first without any of like the little ridges. And then I was like, but it needs to feel more like an Oreo, and like what's gonna push that? And I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm definitely doing like research by eating Oreos while I'm thinking about this. And I'm like looking at the Oreo, I'm like, oh, it has these nice ridges, right? So I did one ridge, and I was like, fuck you, like damn it, like that's what it is. And so like I literally had to like glue all these ridges on both sides of these cookies for every single cookie that was in the animation. But that's what you do, because like the details are like what makes like this like shit look like amazing. So definitely like, yeah, I'm definitely happy that I did it, but I hated it when I was doing it, but like the end result was definitely awesome. So like that's like the template like of like the milk kind of a carton. There's a cookie suspended on a C-stand, and that's pretty much how I was able to like have it flip, which I'll show you a little bit more. What do we got here? So yeah, you could like right here you could see like all the pieces of the cookies that kind of like make it like look like it's like disappearing. And like this is like the dumbest thing, but like I was like super like stoked when I was like, dude, like I laid tile, but it's like paper tile, and like I made this little like just like a template thing that like was perfectly like had the right like measurements in between each like it was the grout in the tile, and like it's like the dumbest thing, but it was so satisfying to me that I figured that out. And then just like me, yeah, like the stage is like not super big, but it's not like it's not that small either. That cookie is like it's a pretty good sized cookie. So yeah, like that's like a quick shot in Dragon Frame, like without like editing of the wire out, and that's pretty much how I got it to flip, and like maintain like where it was, because I'd never done something where like it flipped and then I had to basically change things out underneath it, and you could see that like pool of milk is growing as it's flipping. So I needed that wire to hold that cookie up while I would change out the bloop of the milk. And and then it's just like a lot of photoshopping of like the frames of those wires to clean it up. And then this is how I made like the cookie look like it was growing out of the milk. I just basically did this, but then like reversed it. So like at first I was like, how the fuck am I gonna do this? Like, am I gonna have to cut this shoe up? Which I didn't want to do. And also, if you ever like some advice, if you ever do for like shoes or any kind of like things, like get the smallest size possible, because this will dictate how big you need to make everything. So like they're like, what's your size? And I told them my size, and then like I should have said like a child size like 4 or something like that. That way like everything would have been like smaller, but like so like everything was huge and bigger because of that shoe size. But now I have like a pretty cool set of shoes that I don't wear. They're like a trophy, but like super limited, really cool. And then so I did that for that, and then this is like the end result. Then it spins around, and then it dunks back in, and then it just keeps growing around and around. And that's that.
Thank you, Tommy. This is my burger that I made yesterday. Okay, so our last speaker of the day is Adi Goodrich. I've been inspired by her work for years now. She's an artist and designer, most known for her iconic graphic sets that she builds by hand in her studio in Los Angeles. Her work is used in advertising and film, site-specific murals, tour visuals for bands such as Fleet Foxes and OK Go, sculptures, homewares, and the list goes on. Adi's unique style and eye for color in impossible environments made real are a true tactile inspiration. So let's welcome to the stage Adi Goodrich.
I'm going to take out my toothpick now, but it looks pretty tough. Hi. I'm Adi Goodrich. So next time I say that, I want you guys to introduce yourself all at once too, so I don't feel so alone. Hi, I'm Adi Goodrich. Wonderful to meet you. I also am half of a studio in Los Angeles called Sing Sing. We're a creative studio that does lots of stuff, and we'll get into that. But mostly I'm a set designer. And people get really excited when they see my work and they say, set design is so much fun, I bet you have the best time. But it's really difficult. And I'm often very sleepy. And I would even go as far to say set design is pretty terrible sometimes. And even further, stick to graphic design, because all you need is a computer. Actually, it's all right. So I really do love my job, and I'm going to tell you all about it. The coolest part about what I do is I get to employ all of my friends who are super talented artists in their own right. This is a video of us making a set, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like on set when we're creating these crazy things. So the producer is in there, interns are in there, I think my brother's in there this day, the photographer, who's my partner's in there, I'm in there. Everyone's in there and everyone gets together and we make these wild, very large sets, and when we're done, we throw them into the dumpster. So it is all about the energy that we put into the project together as friends and working really hard and making these really wonderful little moments together that exist in real life for just a little bit. So just to go through kind of what I do is mostly what I do is commercial, which for a long time kind of bummed me out. I was like, oh, I'm not an artist. I just make commercials and I make images for billboards. But like I said, it is with all of my friends, and I push myself to make things that I think have never been made before. Every time I don't recycle anything. Like I said, we throw everything away, or we break it down and use the materials on personal projects. But these are some projects just as an overview. I'll just go like kind of left to right. Sagmeister and Walsh, Target, OK Go, Google, Native Shoes, Headspace, HP, Adidas, Target again, and Apple. I work in editorial, commercial, art, photography, all sorts of things. This is Wired Magazine. Native Shoes, which was a project I did set design on as well as creative direction. Sony, this is a commercial, so this is moving images. Target again, lots and lots and lots of Target. Apple, like I said. I do work for bands, so this is Dale Earnhardt Jr. This is one of the first sets I made. Me and all my friends just painting lots of shapes. This is like 8 years ago, so it's a bit old. Little Dragon, this is a project where we made this neon sign, hung it over a lake in Big Bear, asked the band to wake up at 3 a.m. before the sun came up over the trees, so it would just be perfect. They got really pissed and didn't use the image because I think they hated us, but it's pretty beautiful, all the reflections. Okay, go. And sometimes I work for really weird people. This was a hospital that kept on asking me to come back to Minneapolis to make these really abstract, weird worlds. And the creative directors of the project and the people behind the project was this like panel of old women, which I didn't understand why they liked this. And I didn't understand why they kept on asking me back and paying me. I was like, what's happening? This is an image of all of us on set. So the sets we do were, I kind of wanted to just describe it. Some people know what set design is, like to the detail, and some people don't. So what I do is I design the sets. Like I said, I hire my friends. We build them off-site, and then we make these beautiful piles in trucks of all of the objects, and we bring them to set. Then we put them on set, and we shoot them. Set design requires big trucks and lots of muscles, lots of paint. Sometimes, though, we work outside, and there is no set. As I've gotten older, I get to do different things, which is really exciting. If I was just making sets still after 10 years, I feel like I'd probably, I don't know, I'd be very bored, so I do all sorts of stuff. It's another behind the scenes. I always think that the behind the scenes images are so much more interesting than the finals, so I really like to share those. Tommy was talking about sharing things, and I think for me, sharing the behind the scenes really excites people. Because I make advertising, I feel a bit alone from the art world, or even, people really, really getting their hands dirty in a studio. So kind of my philosophy in set design is to also like push people to be excited to make things. So I really like to show the crew and the people building things and sharing the process of it. Sometimes we have to work outside. In Los Angeles, it's hot as balls, and it sucks. Sometimes you gotta work on your tippy toes because you brought a ladder that is too small. This is all done with tape, which is insane. Everything I do, I make sure that it's done by the hand. I feel like when people are going through the internet, which is just, there's a million images online, if they can rest on yours for a little longer, that's probably good. So I make sure to do everything by hand so that there's little pieces that will say, hey, this isn't done with a computer, this is done by hand. So even when things are done, I ask the dudes to kind of fuck it up a little bit. So you'll see, if you really examined this, you'll see that there's tape peeling and that the paint maybe is a little dirty and the lines aren't quite perfect, but I think that's really nice. Sometimes we get to buy weed, which is really funny. And then we have balloons smoke the weed. This is me in my studio, so this is what it looks like. Again, this is a project I did that was all about patterns, and I wanted to pre-paint all the patterns. I'm kind of I don't want to say control freak because that makes me seem like I'm terrible, but I guess I don't, if I'm hiring someone on a job, I don't want them to have the response, like as a builder, right? So like a dude that shows up and gets a day rate. I don't want to say like, make some cool patterns, because that's not his role. So it's really important for me as a designer and a boss of sometimes like 40 people to take the time, even if it's off the clock, to prepare and to come up with it with my hand so that they can reproduce what I've done with my own hand. So how did it begin? I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and it was pretty expensive. Really expensive. And then I moved to Hollywood, and I had no money. So I got a part-time job doing window displays at Barney's and then Anthropology. And at night, with window display, you wake up at 4 a.m., you work until like 2 or 3, and then at night, I met these friends, and they're like, you should do the sets for the movie. And I had no friends, so I said, sure, I could do the sets. And we made a lot of terrible, terrible mistakes. But this was a movie we made about a werewolf stuck on a submarine called Red Moon. And we all acted in it. Jimmy Marble was one of my first friends in LA and one of my best friends, and he really pushed me to know that I could be a set designer. I had never really thought about that. I was doing window displays, and I grew up with a dad that we restored houses, and I did lots of woodworking growing up, but I thought leaving art school meant I had to become an artist. And he was like, no, your art is like built environments. So the first couple years in LA were all about making these movies and figuring out like what a space is and figuring out movie magic. This is a whole room of plants, but you only have to shoot a little bit. So you put a plant in the foreground and then it looks like you're in a jungle. So it was really cool to work with friends, of course not getting paid, and make these little moments and figure out set design on my own. I didn't go to school for set design. And the art school I went to is really conceptual, and I really didn't like it. So I felt when I graduated school, I didn't leave with much, but it really was about just self-education and just being obsessed. And again, waking up at 5 a.m., finishing work at 2 or 3, and then making movies with my friends until like 1 a.m., being really tired. So I decided I'm going to quit my job. I'm not the one for a job. I was working at a mall, and I had to wear dresses, and I was like, this is not who I am. Like, wearing dresses and putting clothes on mannequins, I was like, fuck this. So I grew up in a wood shop, and I was like, I'm just going to make my wood shop. Most set designers design and then ship it out to a build house, like a really nice build house, and there's a big crew of dudes that I keep on saying dudes just because it's mostly dudes, but sometimes there's really rad ladies. But everyone builds it, and it's great, and it's very, very expensive. And I was like, okay, I have no name in the world of set design. I really love it, but I do know how a wood shop works, so I'm going to start my own thing. So I found this little lean-to. The walls on the left, you could just pull open and steal all my tools. So my friend Eric moved to town, and we built him a little house. And we built a bed in the floor so that he could hide his bed if the landlord ever came. So he lived there, and he kept all the scary alley people away so that they wouldn't steal our tools. And we made this little business, and I would design the sets, and we would build them in-house, which is super uncommon for a set designer, but also very, very uncommon for a lady to do. So people started getting really excited. These are my dudes. This is Aaron, Eric, Dustin, and Graham. Graham's a gradiator. He can roll a gradient pretty well. He's also really, really good at math. I'm not very good at math, so when I started getting into these like wild sets, I'd be like, Graham, can you do the math for me? He's like, I got you. Aaron is like a little brother. He's my lead man a lot of the times. Eric, I grew up with him. We used to build skateboard ramps together in his backyard and skateboard, and when he moved to town, I was like, you could build something, what's up? Dustin was a sign man in Chicago, which meant he put up every Taco Bell sign in Chicago. And he moved to LA, and I was like, what's up, dude, are you making art? And he's like, no, I'm doing signs. And I was like, come on set. Incredible dude. So he knows how to interact with people, how to climb ladders, safety of installing things. These are my dudes on set. So this is pretty funny. I'm gonna turn up the volume. Is the volume up?
That's great. More bubbles.
So this is the first set that I designed from work. This band came to us, and they were like, we're a young LA band. We just want to like feel like LA. And this was, again, probably 9 years ago. People paint plants all the time, but it wasn't really happening at that time. So I was like, okay, let's paint a bunch of plants and make this crazy set. So we hand painted all these plants. And then a year later, my friend Chad Corey was like, did you see the Cougar Town? They painted all the plants. And I was like, what the fuck? So then I quickly realized, like, okay, now there's social media or just the internet, and everyone's looking on Pinterest and everyone's copying each other. So I decided, all right, if I'm gonna do set design, everything I do has to be almost impossible to reproduce unless you're a crazy person. So I was working with these two photographers, Juco, and they said, we want to do a shoot. Do you want to help us? We don't have much money. It's just for this small jewelry line. We want to do marbled paper. And I was like, okay. And they're like, you could get it. We saw it at Paper Chase. You can get it at Paper Chase. And I was like, yeah, cool. Definitely not going to buy marbled paper. So we built these vats. The school that I went to, I kind of popped around. SAIC unfortunately has no majors or minors, which sounds cool, but it means that like you learn actually nothing very deep. Good for me, bad for most people. But I did take a fibers class and we learned how to marble paper. So I was like, I got this, let's do this. And this kind of started the idea of like every time we work on a project, let's make it impossible. Let's make it by hand so that no one can reproduce it. Also, I think because there's so much to do in the world, being young, I think because I'm talking to students, I kind of wanted to bring up this point. There is so much to do and there's so many cool things out in the world happening, but just stick to what you know. This is Bob Vila. He's like my dad. I grew up, does anyone know Bob Vila? Can I see hands? Okay, so Bob Vila rules. He was in the like 80s and 90s. He had this show called This Old House. And I was addicted to it as a kid. Like I didn't like normal kid things. I just liked Bob Vila a lot. This is me and my brother. No, it's not. But this is basically my childhood. I just photoshopped this. But this is my childhood of like being obsessed with Bob Vila. For some reason in my body, I was like, I need to build things. So I was obsessed with Bob Vila. That's me in the middle. I'm always looking like a boy, wearing a NoFX t-shirt, loving punk rock music. I was like, okay, so when doing set design, instead of going to the regular set design build houses where you get the wood, you get the paint, boom, 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 I was like, okay, what do I like? I'm obsessed with carpet warehouses, and I'm obsessed with linoleum stores, and I'm obsessed with all these like weird material stores. So when this next project came up, I was like, I gotta get into that carpet warehouse because they got the craziest colors. It's super cheap. We have no money. Let's do it. So we packed up a bunch of carpet, got in a truck, and I made this set. And it was awesome. Graham helped with the math, but I designed it and we built it and made these beautiful images of this girl on a carpet. And this was the first set that people were like, oh, what's up? And it's not great. There's only one way you can shoot it. Like you shoot against it. So it's not like in like the set world. It's really not a great set. But I felt different than the other people because I was thinking about different materials. No one really uses carpet on a wall and cuts it up and does crazy work with carpet. And this is a very different wall than a painted wall. So I started standing out and I was like, yeah, do what you know. Like go with what you love. Like I love weird carpet warehouses, so use those materials. Also, I'm super inspired by art history. Almost all my projects, it rarely shows through and no one really knows it, but it's really important for me to like research either materials or an artist. And James Turrell at this time was kind of all over the place. James Turrell works with colored light in spaces to make the spaces, when people walk into the space, they feel the color and the light and they think about the color and light, so we got stoked on that. Again, another editorial project for Paper Magazine, no money. So I said, okay, well, we don't have a ton of crazy colored light, but I do have some extra wood, so let's use that wood. I'll paint it in gradients. We get green paint, we add white, we have like James Turrell gradients, so we made this editorial about James Turrell. And then the Drake music video came out, and I was like, oh, fuck. Like, Drake is inspired by James Turrell? All right. So then I got stoked on this nun. I was like, what's the furthest thing from Drake? Her name's Sister Karita Kent, and I'm sure everyone has seen this, but if you haven't, you must try to find this later. But she has this great group of rules that she was a teacher and an artist. I'll just read a random one. Rule 6, nothing is a mistake. There's no win and no fail, there's only make. Rule number 2, general duties of a student, pull everything out of your teacher. pull everything out of your fellow students. Rule 5, be self-disciplined. This means finding someone wise or smart and choosing to follow them. To be disciplined is to follow in a good way. To be self-disciplined is to follow in a better way. So making rules in your studio and sticking to them. For me, it's hiring my friends that aren't set builders. It's going to material places that no one else would look. It's deciding to throw everything away every time and make it over and over and over and over and over. I was inspired by Sister Karita Kent's line work specifically. She worked with a lot of cut paper and then screen printed it, and I was like, all right, this lady rules. So we did this editorial using the line work of Sister Karita. So when my guys were painting, I was first cutting papers and explaining the line work as they were painting and saying, like, you don't paint like this. You get a flat brush and you paint like this, right? Which is really fun. I also made mock-up. So this collage piece that I had made a while before, being inspired by Sister Karita and just fucking around in the studio, became this like beautiful wall. Another project, just to talk about inspiration, I saw these old posters and I was like, those are really cool old travel posters. How can we make an editorial that doesn't feel like so nostalgic in 1940s, but be inspired by the way that the printing is done and the limited use of color at that time? So we made these lots of umbrellas. We painted these umbrellas. We added these paper birds. We added weird graphic waves at the bottom and made like really cool images. I also think a lot about texture and material. So I wanted to make these towels and paint on these towels. And this is going back to that image where I like hand painted all of the patterns first before handing them over to my friends to paint so that they could like reproduce it. We made stencils. There's also always thinking about materials and texture. Like if everything was hand done, it might get a bit boring. So I always try to mix textures. So we decided to use real sand and fake ocean. Painted towels and real plants, but the plants are painted. I would say get off the internet as much as you possibly can and look out into the world. I think, again, because everyone is sharing everything and it's very exciting and sharing your work is super important, I also think that we need to walk around and breathe the air and get our blood flowing. So I do a lot of like, it's a bit embarrassing, but I do a lot of like dances in the studio to shake things up. I go on walks and I start seeing things out in the world. This is when I was in Italy and I saw these people walking by this abandoned storefront, and the storefront was painted white really quickly to hide whatever construction they were doing inside. And I was like, they look like they're walking in the clouds. So then I get to show my clients these images and freak them out. And they're like, okay, what is this? And I was like, well, this image is going to inspire this set piece. So then we had these people kind of like walking through these clouds. And it seems pretty like those, maybe my clients wouldn't make that connection, but I think it's really interesting to share that with clients instead of sharing, like I said, get off the internet. Instead of sharing an image that someone else made, like share something that you like snapped on your phone, like cool lines in a sidewalk or, you know, lots of random things. This was also the same trip in Paris. There was a surrealist exhibition at, wow, I can't remember, the Pompidou. And I was like, man, these beautiful rocks that go in aquariums rule. I'm going to use that at some point. So I showed it to the director of this Sony commercial, and I said, these are so beautiful. Let's make these. We have we have to do like a scene in a pet shop. Let's like put these rad rocks in there. So they became these beautiful silhouettes. And without like looking around and documenting and archiving all these random little phone images that I had, I wouldn't have the opportunity to share this. You know, a sketch is a little different than like actually showing someone. And people get really excited. Clients get really excited when you show them something that no one else has ever seen. The Holy Mountain inspired this next project. So inspiration comes from everywhere. This is a film. This project was done like 6 years ago. We had all these little triangles. I kind of wanted to bend space a little bit. So instead of creating triangles at the same size, we made all of these all these different size triangles, so from 18 inches to 12 feet, to make this space feel like it was forever, but also flat. I'm not a graphic designer, but I always want to be a graphic designer, but I make everything very hard, so I'm not a graphic designer. But I think, not to say graphic design is easy, I'm very jealous of all of you, but I want to like fuck with people's space, and I want them to think I did it in a computer and then show them that I didn't. And then this happens, like people Photoshop the image and it's terrible. So again, I often like the behind the scenes images and the process, and sometimes the end is really weird. More inspiration from life. This is at my sister's house in Chicago. I saw this wooden door with a cutout and I was like, this shit is so beautiful. What's up? So I took a picture, and then when I was doing this editorial, I showed this stupid image to the photographers, and I was like, something about this, can you just let me like run with this? And we just had a piece of wood, made a little cutout, made this editorial, this like freaky church vibe. Also, again, art. I had this project called These Are My Friends and Their Friends. In art school, I didn't make any friends because I was working a lot. I worked full-time and went to school full-time, but I did go to a school that had a museum, the Art Institute of Chicago. And I felt like I like connected a lot while eating sandwiches in front of Matisse and Stuart Davis. And I was like, okay, well now I have friends. Those are my old friends. These are my new friends. Let's bring them together. So Stuart Davis was an inspiration for this project. I wanted to recreate my favorite friends with my favorite friends. So I asked Chad Curry, Julia Stotz, and Brian Guido to help me on this project. And we just figured out a way to look at this painting and recreate it in a super 3D space, and I thought it was pretty cool. Again,
Hey,
speaking
Becky.
of friends, this is what it looks like on set.
Wiley?
Hi.
Eric's really mean all the time. Victoria's like hand dotting an umbrella.
Suck, girl. Suck.
So this is a project we did with Sagmeister and Walsh. We exploded Liechtenstein into 3D space and figured out how to make that space feel, again, very flat but dimensional. There's probably an easier way to do this, but again, I want everything to be just a little fucked, so I decided to paint everything. So those chairs up close like are pretty, they're just not accurate, and I think that like makes the work kind of stand out and makes people want to look at it for a second more. This is a project we did for Target. I drew up a cyc. I decided let's lose the set walls completely. Again, always trying to be like, okay, what is a set? A set is set walls and paint, so let's not use set walls. So a cyclorama is, you know, that big white sweep that you see in photo studios, and it's used so that you could shoot something on it and there's no seams, there's no floor, there's no wall, and a lot of people use it that way. That's why people use seamless, so you can just have like a seamless, like no floor, no wall situation. And I said, okay, well, let's use that to fuck with space a little bit. So we hand painted this 60-foot wide mural on the set and started photographing it. And this is a set that actually really works well while shooting. Like if you shoot it one way, you're getting just the tiles. If you're shooting it another way, it looks like the road goes up, and it was awesome. But then all these weird pimply like 12-year-olds got on set. I took this job because it's a Shaun White job and I love skateboarding, and I was like, yes, we get to make a cool skate park and Shaun White's gonna skate it. But these kids showed up and I was like, oh shit. So then we asked Target, which is amazing that they let us shoot an editorial on it. And the difference, this is really, I wanted to show you guys this because this is the difference between commercial work and personal work. So in commercial work, like this happens. You have to like sell clothes and everyone has to like face the camera. But in editorial work, you get to really do what you want. You get to let the girl disappear into the space and have her bleach her eyebrows. And just be total weirdos. So you can see this, like the image on the right actually starts looking like a dimensional road, which is really amazing. So change forever, forever, forever. I do it every day, every single project, which is very exhausting. But I think on a bigger level of a career, like you might be going to school for graphic design and you might end up in music, like, and I think that's very scary at sometimes to do all these changes, but instead of being scared of the change and knowing that it's going to happen, like embrace that, like what you're doing now might be like the complete opposite of what you'll do in the future. Also, embrace the change, like as often as possible. Don't be afraid of it. I was doing sets for a very long time, working with a couple different photographers, and I just decided I don't want to just be the set designer. Like, I'm choosing the clothes, I'm working with the models, the creative directors are asking me like what the models should wear. They're, you know, and I just felt a bit awkward that like the photographers weren't being like the bosses on set, really. Like, it became this like weird line, and I was like, okay, they're either gonna start hating me, I'm gonna start hating the process, or I need to change. So I took a really bold move, which now seems very simple, but to go from a set designer to a photographer is terrifying. But I decided to do that, and it's so much better now. I have to do double the work, but I work with my partner. We do the photos, I do the sets. We get the clients ourselves, and it just feels like a more holistic process as well. Instead of getting orders from the photographer and then them shooting it here, and I'm like, why are you shooting it there? That wall is like so cool. Shoot it here. Now I get to make those decisions. This was the first photo project I did for the Standard Hotel, about bongs and boyfriends and weed, and it was really silly, but I just dedicated 3 months. I was like, okay, I'm gonna reach out to this hotel lady. I'm gonna ask her if I could do a show at the Standard. She said yes, which was very surprising, and then I'm gonna dedicate 3 months. And so I spent my evenings trying to figure out light, trying to figure out like the camera, trying to make it happen, and I made really cool images, and just saying I was a photographer wasn't enough. I had experience in photography for years. It's really not the hardest thing, but actually doing it and then showing it to my friends and the public was, it just boosted my confidence. Then I decided to collaborate with my partner. We met actually on the Sony job I showed you earlier, and he's a director and an animator and is the complete opposite brain from me. He likes tech and computers and lots of wires all the time. He's animating, he's directing. I'm doing sets and I'm building things out of wood. He doesn't know how to do that. I don't know how to do his things, and we decided to join forces, which is also, again, another change. Instead of being like, it's just me here, like you get to talk to me, it was like, okay, now it's two of us, and we both have opinions, which can be like super difficult, right? And we're together. So we started a studio called Sing Sing, because Kulpa gave their kind of story about their name. I wanted to give you mine, which I don't actually ever do, but Sing Sing came from the idea of the jail, Sing Sing, and I think about work in that way, like work, although it looks really beautiful and really fun, it actually really sucks, but sing sounds really beautiful. So it's, the idea behind the studio is like, we're gonna do it, it's gonna suck, but it's gonna be really beautiful, and we're gonna like try to have a good time together. Again, because we started this studio, I'm again at ground zero. Like, set design jobs are coming in, and I'm like, sorry, I don't do set design anymore, and my bank account's just going down. So Good Magazine reached out, and they're like, hey, can you do set design for this editorial? And I was like, no, I can't, but I can do the photo and the set design, so let's do it. So this was our first project as our studio, is to create these images for Good Magazine. And I was able to push it and not have to work in the ways that I had to work before, with the same walls and the same materials as I did, because the other photographers had that aesthetic. I could now create my own aesthetic and think about the things that I really loved, which were texture and going to my favorite store, Linoleum City, and going down to the fashion district and working with worms and thinking about light in a different way. Some other projects we've done for Zendesk, Headspace was one of our first clients, which was really amazing when they first started. Fruit of the Loom, where we got to photograph people in underwear, which you saw earlier, which is real awkward, real dumb. This guy was a weirdo. Also, like, shooting people in underwear is really funny because you have to, like, I shouldn't say this. You have to, like, pack their fronts. Like, you have to, like, make weird shapes. Some Adidas work we did, which was really fun. Again, now I have a partner that I can work with, that I can be like, hey, let's shoot. This was a collaboration with a chef, and I was like, okay, let's not put the chef in the picture. Like, let's put the food in the picture and shoot shoes on food. Are you down? And he's like, yeah, we're down. So then we get to bring our wild ideas to the client together instead of me kind of like fighting with the person that hired me or being bummed out. I was never fighting, but just kind of being bummed out at the outcome. We moved to New York, and that's when our studio formed. We don't live there anymore. It only lasted like 2 months. But we created this alphabet book called Alphabetical. That's actually how we got, Tommy talked a lot about personal work. This is actually how we got like our first client, Headspace, and then Zendesk, is because we made, so funny that Tommy was talking about alphabets, because this was the same thing. I was like, okay, I don't know what we're doing. What are we doing? And Sean was like, we're going to make an alphabet book, A to Z. We're going to make these little still lives, and it's going to rule. And then you're going to be happy, because I was making all these like weird still lives and I was bummed out. But we made this, and then we got work from it, and they're not really great photos, but I think just doing the work like gives you confidence to talk about it, and then makes people see the work.
Do you suffer from geo-angst? Have you ever wondered, maybe my life would be better if I lived in... If you feel you're missing out on everything, and your feet be always itching, then you might just suffer from this all too common modern mind condition. Maybe the grass looks a little greener, and even the air seems a whole lot cleaner. More opportunities, people and things to see, better art, music, schools, friends, food, and even bigger trees. If you feel the pull, the urge, the dream to try a new city out, don't sit there and always wonder. Go forth so you have no doubt. But keep in mind, nowhere is perfect, and no city is the best. In every place there is a trade-off, be it north or south or west. And maybe it's not the place, the people, the city, or the view. It could be that the real change needs to happen within you. Embrace your community where one exists. If it doesn't, then try and make one with your neighbours or your fists. There are good people everywhere. You just have to look and find them. Don't give up on where you are so quickly or so easy, but if you want to try a new place out, then do it. Don't be lazy. You'll never know until you try, so get up off your chair and out into the open world to here or there. All these things are good to do. Travel, move, wander, explore, and try your best when sitting at home to geo-angst no more. A short message brought to you by Sing Sing.
Cool. So at the end, it said a Saturday short. So we started this thing called Saturday School at my studio, where I was like, LA sucks. Like, I said that for like years. LA sucks, there's no community. And after a while, I was like, oh, wait a second, I'm an adult in LA, so it's up to me to make that change. So we started this thing called Saturday School, and we either make videos or projects or invite people to do lectures or workshops, and it's been really fun to spend Saturdays in a more communal way and to create that change in Los Angeles that we think it is needed. Another project we did for Paper Chase Press, I'm showing you guys a lot of projects that I made zero money or actually like lost money on, but it's really important to do that because it's seen, like making a personal project sometimes no one sees it, but making a project where you know that the outcome is going to turn into a rad calendar or is going to be on someone's website is really good. Even if it costs money, it's really important. And you get to get weird. So when someone says like, hey, I don't have any money, but can you do this project? You get to say, yeah, cool, I'm gonna do whatever I want. So it's really important to remember that unpaid projects sometimes make the best work. So this is all kind of Sing Sing work now. We did a Like Minds, but there's a conference in upstate New York called Like Minds where a bunch of people spend, mostly designers, mostly New Yorkers, spend a weekend in upstate camping and talking about wonderful things. And they came to us and they were like, hey, can you guys do the branding? We were like, we're not graphic designers, sounds good. But we're photographers and we're filmmakers and we're all sorts of things. So we talked to them and we were like, you probably came to us because we make work with lots of color. However, because we're not getting paid so much for this, we're going to propose what we really want to make that we can't really make in the commercial world. So we proposed this idea of these little miniatures that felt like, the idea is that they feel very big, but they're actually very small. And it was this idea of all these little pieces coming together, so like minds, all these people coming together, all these pieces together coming from a pile of mess, so pipes and little pieces of metal that we got at Industrial Metal Supply in Los Angeles, and foam. Like, isn't that the process of creativity? Like, you start with a bunch of shit and then it transforms into something really cool if everything goes right. So we said, like, cool, we're gonna do photo, we'll do the branding, but we're also gonna make a video for you guys. And again, we like to use both of our talents now. So on my own, I can do set design and sometimes like bad drawings, but with Sean, we can do photo lighting and photo and video and music. So we made this video for Like Minds as well that we collaborated with a musician friend, John Bowers, and he made really creepy music and we made really creepy images, and it was awesome. So it's cool to like not do what you did before over and over again, like I've said. And this was a really very like dark space. But as I grow into a set designer too, I'm interested in how color changes because color is so much a part of what I do. I teach color workshops and color theory classes. And as I get older, I'm trying to get away from the super saturated commercial colors. So we did this music video for Dirty Projectors, and I got to create like a real room that felt like this doesn't feel like a real room, what am I saying? But I think it feels more like a rad space than like a weird commercial set. And I'm thinking about color being affected by light and material. So the carpet is a really deep blue, and it's carpet, so it's gonna suck up all the light, rather than doing the painted floor like we usually do. Also practical lighting coming through the window, all different ways to think about color. And we also worked with birds, lots and lots and lots of birds, which is really fun. So the color became about like thinking about the intention of material and colors. Color became about those animals rather than this set being these wild colors. Also a personal project where we used old materials to make a set and to shoot it. Again, no money, and actually money like taking out of our bank account to make this. But it's really important when you have like a down 5 days to do work that you haven't done before. We don't do a lot of like fashion beauty stuff. This is also a project like when I do set design and when we do photo projects, we have to include lots and lots of people. And I was like, okay, how do I make this impossible for myself? Okay, so I'll build the set myself, which is fine. I'll also not have a wardrobe stylist. I met with some wardrobe stylists and they were like, yeah, cool, it's gonna be like, I don't know, like $2,000 for the wardrobe budget. And I was like, what the fuck? I don't have that. I don't want to spend that either. So I decided, okay, so I'm going to build the set myself. I'm going to ask a friend to model, and the wardrobe will be a towel because towels are simple and cool, and it doesn't cost $2,000. So we did that. This is an image of a cat with glasses. So Jessica Walsh reached out again, Sagmeister and Walsh, and she said, hey, can you do set design for this project? We're going to do that crazy 3D project again, and I want you to do the sets. And I was like, Jessica, what if I do the photos and the sets? And so I want to just go back to this slide and say, ask for it. Don't be afraid, even if you are known, even with a client that you've worked with multiple times, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I actually want to do this, or hey, did you think about this? So we were able to do the project ourselves and totally own the project and photograph the project. This is a little bit out of order, but this was, again, one of our really early studio projects where I could have just been like, sorry, Sean, see you later. I'm going to make some cash and do the set design. But instead I was like, what's up, Sean? We're not going to make any money, but we're going to get some cool work for our portfolio and do it together. So that was really cool.
From that point,
this is what it looks like again on set. We have 3 minutes to make this crazy rug that we planned 2 weeks ago, but we forgot to make. So it's just 8 people working on something very quickly. Everyone throwing in. We painted a horse. We drank lots of liqueur. And we made beautiful images. Also, having a partner that's a different height than you is cool because you could get rad shots from above that you can't get. So this is the wall that I showed you guys in the beginning, and I wanted to talk about budgets. Set design does require lots of materials and lots of hands. So on this project, Jessica wanted this 3D wall, and she had this great design, and I was like, okay, printing that is going to cost $3,000. So how do we do this? So we painted a wall red, covered it in painter's tape, made perfect cuts, and then all just threw in for 2 hours and took half of the tape off and made this wall. So this image, you think maybe, oh, we're inspired by vibration of red and blue vibrating colors together, but actually it was well, blue tape is super cheap. Let's start with that. So sometimes the colors are actually chosen, but often it's about the materials that are available and within budget. Just a little bit of process. I wanted to start doing album covers, which this is the only album cover I did, and then I decided I don't want to do album covers. But this was for RAC, and I proposed a bunch of different ideas, and they saw them and they're like, rad, let's go with A or B or whatever they decided to go with. And I was like, cool. They're like, just send the file over. And I was like, no, we're going to make it dimensionally, you crazy. So we did that. They thought it was going to look like this, which is not cool to me, but we built it dimensionally, and it just became something that was really wonderful and really, really simple. And you got to see the texture of the paint. It was also a project that they were coming out with 4 singles and then the full-length album. So we talked about shooting each individual quadrant for all the singles, and that would kind of he has a wild following, so it would tease all the friends well, what is this? Oh, and I see a little sliver of something over there, and there's another little sliver. What's happening? And then the full album came out and people were stoked. So Fleet Foxes, Sean has done all of their creative direction and animations and videos for the past 10 years. So when they came out with their newest album, Crack Up, we became kind of the creative directors of it. We go to the museum a lot with Robin, and we talk about ideas. Robin's the lead singer, and it's Sean's brother. So we talk about lots of ideas, and Robin was like, I'm obsessed with Helen Frankenthaler, and we have to do a lyric video. Can you guys make a Helen Frankenthaler-inspired lyric video? And we were like, what's a lyric video? Lyric video basically means that there's no money, and then you put the lyrics in the video. And so we thought, okay, well, how does Helen Frankenthaler work? She throws paint on a canvas, and it stains the canvas, and that's how she does it. But how do we make a video that isn't a bunch of stills of paint, just stills of paint? It's a video, so it has to move. So me being obsessed with materials, we did lots of tests with viscosity of paint and light going through different fabrics, and we came up with this, technique of shooting paint on a lit surface. And Sean shot it below, and I was above with an air compressor blowing it, and it was vibrating. And then we shot it in slow motion, so you got these beautiful, beautiful images. I'll just play a little snippet of it, but I talk about this in my color theory class of like how to work with color in a different way using a different material. So color doesn't have to be paint on a wall all the time. Color can be about like, color can evoke emotion with movement and backlit. It could be pretty special. Hope it's not too loud.
Oh, but I can hear you loud in the center. Aren't we made to be crowded together like leaves? Is I too slow? Did you change overnight? Second son on the other line. Now back in our town is a castaway.
So I'll stop it there because it's a 9-minute song. But that was really interesting. Again, talking about change and thinking about change. Like if you see my work, it's usually colored sets. But now I'm getting into costume design and spatial design and weird hippie paint on canvas that's moving, which is fine. But it's really important to embrace change. So then we did a Fleet Foxes film shot on 35 millimeter film, and Sean said, "Hey, I gotta get out of the studio. I can't take this anymore. We gotta go out into the world." And I was like, "Cool. I'm a set designer. What's up?" So I became the costume designer, and then I started thinking about how color can interact with people and bodies and wind and nature. We created these 4 groups of girls, and we worked with the choreographer. So then color became about movement and evoking emotion through choreography. Super far from what I started with, painting plants in a studio. Just a little teaser on that video.
It was a fool's errand, waiting for a sign.
Some behind the scenes images of when my hair looked real good. Testing out with the producer and doing location scouts. Some rad images of all the cool dancers. I also got to do hair and makeup, which I have really no interest in, but it's really cool to then think about the shapes of hair. So if this girl's like doing these broad movements, like what if she had like a horse mane hair, like this fake hair that looked like a horse mane. We also got to do the tour design, which was really cool. So that's like in my realm, but a tour design for public and sometimes 20,000 people watching it means it has to be fire safe. So this is the first time I couldn't employ my dudes to build this, and I had to think about, okay, well, I want this to be wood, but it has to be publicly safe, so we're gonna make these things out of aluminum and paint them out of wood and use materials that are publicly safe, IFR, inherently flame retardant, all of these things that I'm like, I didn't go to school, but I have to like learn on the go. So we created these beautiful wood-like pieces for the stage show that would be, that would have light on them and would be projected. And it was, they also had to pack into tiny little cases, so that was a lot of figuring out and engineering to do. We also made the backgrounds for the projections. Again, not much of a budget, so we used, we made these small Brancusi sculptures, lit them, and then with Sean's talents, then we made all of these patterns out of these like moving shapes and did this cool tour design. So all of these move, and we made 24 of them for 24 different songs on the tour. It played at the Hollywood Bowl, and my mind was just blown because usually 12 people see my sets and we throw them in the dumpster. So talking about change, this is like a massive thing, and I think if you just go for it and say like, yeah, I could do that, I could do a tour design, what's up? I made tons of mistakes and people got mad and then they were happy, but it's cool to push it. another music video we did for Fleet Foxes recently, again, out in the world.
And now I see that it's all corroding. Soon is seething, soon is folding. But the night won't last if you just hold fast, so calm down.
Man, Robin's voice is so good. So another thing, always glean. This is a painting called The Gleaners. Gleaning means this painting is about the people that would go in after harvest and pick up the little bits and use it for food to eat. This Dropbox came to me and said like, oh, you're a cool female set designer. Can we make a commercial about you? And I was like, if you give me a budget to make my dream set. And they're like, okay. So I sneakily like designed my dream set, and I was like, here's the budget for it. If I'm gonna be in your commercial, we're gonna make this. And they made this, oh, I can't believe I put this in.
I find my inspiration
embarrassing.
everywhere. I think color is magic. Once the creative flow gets you, there's nothing that can stop you. My name's Goodrich. I'm a set designer.
Okay, so that's fine. Really embarrassing, and everyone saw it, and it was like on when the soccer games are happening and the baseball games. But I said like, all right, I also got my dudes in the commercial and got them paid. So going back to gleaning, like, take what you can and steal as much as you can from everything always. I also grew up pretty poor, so I'm like really good at this. But take as much as you can. So I said, Dropbox, okay, I'm gonna sell my image to you and you're gonna film me. But I got to create a really rad set with the money that they basically gave to this. And I got to do whatever I want. And it's not often on commercial jobs that you get to shoot a girl like shitting on a toilet. And I thought that was cool. So I used that money to make this series of these like shoe portraits of a girl shitting. I thought they were really funny. And then some other images. Then because I made these images, and it wasn't Dropbox, it wasn't an ad, they said, hey, you're an okay photographer and we like your set, so we'll hire you back. And I got paid again with Dropbox, and I got to make this rad, again, cool floating people with shapes, inspired by my trips to Las Vegas with my grandma. I also sold that through and people were excited, but again, just gleaning and stealing as much as you can. I hope like all the paper at the Xerox is always missing at school because you guys are stealing it. You know, like get as much as you can from every experience. Like even bad experiences, I'm often like, people are like, that was so shitty, how do you feel? And I'm like, I feel kind of cool because I learned a bunch of shit. So it's really important to do that. So I'll end it
Try one solid
here.
motion from the bottom and up with both hands moving at the same speed. And go all the way up to the top. That's nice. Back down.
That's cool. Okay, thanks guys.
Okay, guys, that was so tactile. We usually do a Q&A, but we're out of time. So if you have a question for one of our speakers, grab them before they leave. So yeah, that concludes our event. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, COLPA Press. Thank you, Moos AC. Thank you, Tommy Perez, Goodrich. We're all going to be heading across the street after this for the graphic design student exhibition that was curated by Lucy Peterson and Mark Buonafe, sorry, who also did our wonderful branding for our event today, and the tactile poster that maybe you saw walking in, and all of our speaker slides. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. Where are you guys? They're right there. Please Mark, stand up. Yeah, please. Thank you. So please follow them to 151 Hubble across the street for the
The student show.
student show. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.